Okay, apparently we are now live stream, so.
Nice.
Okay. In accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, be advised that notice of this meeting was made by posting on the bulletin board, town hall, and mailing to the officially designated newspapers a list of the meeting dates annually, indicating that this meeting would be taking place on Monday, April 4th, 2022, at 7 p.m. via Zoom webinar. Jody Sharma,
Here.
Steve Toger,
Here.
Wolfgang Torres,
Here.
Chandru Harjani,
Here.
Ashley Avigdor,
Here.
Vice Chairwoman Jessica Glatt,
Here.
Chairman Chairman Craig Pinner. I am never
Here.
going to. It just-
It was a long time.
I've been saying it
Really
for
long
12
time.
years.
It was a really long time.
I apologize, Craig.
Yeah, I still respond. That's to Joe. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
So not a problem at all. So we're going to start off with our approval of minutes from 2/7/22. Any corrections or additions to those? I see no hands raised. So I don't know who's eligible, but
I believe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Everyone was here. So
okay. So can I have a motion to adopt those minutes?
Move approval minutes of 2/7/22.
In a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstaining? The motion is approved for the minutes of 2/7/22. Next, we have 4 memorializations, starting with calendar 384721, Amar Trust Investments, 346 Hartshorn Drive in Short Hills. So this was like a split, right? This decision. So I guess we're just based on what was approved.
Correct.
Okay.
So just to be sure though,
Did one person vote
well,
no?
he voted
right?
no on the AC, so he can't vote on the resolution.
Right.
Mhm.
So he was no on both, where everyone else I think was split.
Everyone else voted yes on the AC, no on the driveway. Correct. Okay.
Right,
Perfect.
so Steve shouldn't vote.
Right. Any direct corrections or changes on this? If not, who's eligible?
Chandru, Ashley, Jessica, Craig.
Okay. Can I have a motion to adopt the memorialization from one of those people?
Motion to approve.
And a second?
I can second.
Okay.
Chandru Harjani,
Yes.
Ashley Avigdor,
Yes.
Jessica Glatt,
Yes.
Craig Pletner.
Yes. Next up is calendar 385021. Simon Lee at 17 Thackeray Drive in Short Hills. Any corrections or changes to that memorialization? Okay, then who's eligible?
Eligible are Steve, Chandru, Ashley, Jessica, Craig.
Can I have a motion to adopt that memorialization?
I move approval.
And a second?
Second.
Steve Toger,
Yes.
Chandru Harjani,
Yes.
Ashley Avigdor,
Yes.
Jessica Glatt,
Yes.
Craig Pletner.
Yes. Next up, we have calendar 385121, Rosemary Dawes at 25 Mountain View Road in Millburn. And any changes or corrections to that? I see none, so who would be eligible?
Same people are eligible, same people.
I'm sorry, same people? Okay. Then can I have a motion to adopt 385121?
Move approval calendar 385121.
And a second?
I'll second.
Steve Toger,
Yes.
Chandru Harjani,
Yes.
Ashley Avigdor,
Yes.
Jessica Glatt,
Yes.
Craig Pletner.
Yes. Lastly, we have calendar 385722, Emily Nicholas Whitley at 88 Birch Lane in Short Hills. Any corrections or changes to that? I see none. I know Jessica
I'm not, eligible.
was
on this
out on
one.
that one.
So it's Steve, Chandru, Ashley, Craig.
Would one of you three give me a motion to adopt that memorialization?
Move approval.
And a second?
I can second.
Thank you.
Steve Tober,
Yes.
Chandru Harjani,
Yes.
Ashley Avigdor,
Yes.
Craig Pleitner.
Yes.
All right.
So now we move on to our application. So one of these applications, which is calendar 385321, the matter is being carried to May 16th, and that's Associates 29 LLC in Millburn. So if you're here in the audience tonight regarding that application at 291 Millburn Avenue, it will not be heard tonight. It will be pushed till May 16th. So make a note, there will be no further notice on that. So if you're here and you'd like to come back, May 16th will be the date. So first up, we have calendar 386022.
Craig, I'm sorry to interrupt. I see Joe in the audience
You do?
Oh,
as
I
one
do
of the
not.
attendees. I just
oh yeah, there he
glanced
is.
over.
And Craig, I want to point out, I recused from calendar 3862-22.
Okay.
Recusal from the last.
Oh, the T-Mobile one, you're out? Okay.
Yep, yep.
Thanks, Jody.
All right, Joseph, you see. All right. Let's see if that's working. I don't know why it's not working.
I tried it too,
Yeah, I don't know why.
to promote them.
Yeah.
Does he need
Oh,
to?
okay, here it comes.
Oh.
Should be coming over.
There he is.
So it's 7:12, I'll mark him as arrived.
Okay, so, hi, Joe.
Hi,
So we're just about to start our first application. You did miss the approval of minutes and memorializations, but we're just about to get started, so your timing was pretty good. So first application is 386022 Xingbao Zhu Yina Lu at 20 Great Hills Terrace, Short Hills. Modification of a previous approval. So I guess, let's see who else is in the audience.
I've read over Yina. I don't know if they're together.
I'll see if there's any other
Um,
any professionals or not. Ms. Lu, how are you this evening?
Hi. Hi, everyone. It's the first time I attend this.
Okay. Do you have anyone else in the audience that needs to be brought over, attendees? Any other professionals or anything else?
I don't know if I told my neighbor, John, I don't know if he's part of the
Okay,
audience.
we'll get to neighbors. That's okay. But I'm just
Okay.
wondering if you have any other professionals, attorney, architect.
Oh, no, it's just us.
Who is Nick Sanagaga?
That is our landscaper.
Okay.
So we
but
can route it him.
Okay, is he
Um,
coming tonight?
No, he's not coming tonight.
All right, Eric, I'll let you do your thing quick.
if you would just raise your right hand, please. There you go. Do you swear, no, leave your right hand up.
Okay.
Do you swear from the testimony about to give in tonight's hearing to be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes,
Just state your name and spell your name for the record, please.
sure. Name is Ina Lu, Yina. Last name is Lu, Lu.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Liu, why don't you bring us up to speed with what you're looking to do here?
Yeah, sure. So our previous owner, I think he filed the variance basically to renovate the entire house. And then one of the condition, I believe condition number 3 is to plant basically a row of 20 feet trees along the west border of our property and our neighbors. So the application here, or the new proposal is, so for the south portion of the area, we're going to elevate the existing retention wall by about 2 to 3 feet to match, the neighbor's ground level, and then also extend to the north by about 4 to 5 feet. And then on the elevated area, we're going to plant 10 to 12 feet trees instead. And then for the remaining north portion of the area, where it's between our house and the neighbor's house, we're going to plant 14 feet trees instead. So the main reason of this is the area was pretty narrow, and it's also the only flat entrance to our backyard for the mowing machines to come in. And then planting 20 feet trees is pretty impractical. Like, we talked to different landscapers. We talked to the I think the town's forester, Mr. Thomas Dottie, I believe, and then they all agree that it's basically not very practical to plant 20 feet trees in that narrow area, and those trees are pretty hard to find on the market too. So that's why we're proposing to plant slightly shorter trees, but we'll keep those Everglades, and they grow at a few 1 to 2 feet per year. So hopefully this would provide good privacy. We talked to our neighbors as well, and they're on board. So that's where all of this is coming from.
Right. So let's talk about this wall.
Mm-hmm.
You enclose a drawing with your package.
Yeah, there's a
Right.
picture. I don't know if you guys can tell.
Right.
There
Well,
was
this
like a. Sorry, go ahead.
Right, so this is what we'll consult here, because this is like this is what we have in our package. So this
Mm-hmm.
wall right now goes from 2 feet up to 3 feet per your drawing, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what are you proposing with that wall? To take it up to 5 feet across what length?
No. We're going to extend. So the wall is pretty narrow to the end, right? So we're going to make it wider, so we can plant trees on top of it. So
Okay,
plus the wall's height, and then we plant 10 to 12 feet trees on top of the wall. So this would add up to like 14 feet. So that this will be about the same height as the remaining trees where we plant on the ground.
So Eileen, are they here for a deviation on the tree height?
No. They're actually here because the previous approval, which was granted in 2017, let me just get it, the actual wording. One of the conditions was that prior to getting a CO, they had to install evergreens at a height of 20 feet above the roof wall for a distance of approximately 45 feet. A CO was never issued. The house was sold to this couple, and there's never been a CO issued on that addition, which needs to be done. So they, as they explained, they had conferred with several landscape architects. They do have an email in here from Tom Doty, who agreed that the 20-foot height was a little bit difficult to accommodate, and felt was in agreement with some of the suggestions that were made by their landscaper. So I think he was willing to work with them. But the big thing was to try to get something on the books to alleviate that certificate, that requirement for the CO, because it's making the addition impossible to live in, because they can't get a CO without either having this condition relaxed somewhat or made to a condition that was a little more acceptable to some of the.
Right.
So
So
the wall has no issue. It's not the, it's really just to get that condition looked at and modified to an extent where they can plant in that area.
Got it.
So Mr. Chairman, just so that the record's clear for the board and for members of the public. So this was an application, variance application before this board that was granted back in 2017. And at the time, as per the resolution that's enclosed with your application packet dated May 15th of 2017, there is some narrative about the fact that the applicant at the time intended to install tall evergreens to replace the evergreen buffer that previously existed between the properties. So it appears that the backstory on this is that the applicant, the prior owner, previously removed 40 to 50-foot evergreens that existed on the property along the western boundary line because the trees were nearly dead, et cetera, and that the applicant at the time anticipated replacing the trees. And it appears that in consultation with the applicant at the time, that they agreed to install the 20-foot conifers for a distance of approximately 45 feet along the western property line, commencing where the applicant's dwelling has a 6-foot side yard setback. So I think that's what led to the height that was in condition number 3 of the resolution.
Right. So, Ms. Lou, now we want to plant 12-foot trees on top of the new, on top of the wall, correct?
Correct.
How many of
And
those?
then on the ground.
Yeah, how many of those?
Let me check the numbers. 4 to 5, I think, according to the distance. Let me quickly check my picture. Yeah, like 4 to 5 on the wall, and then probably 4 to 5 on the ground.
4 or 5. And those are the 14 footers that go on the ground, correct?
Yes, correct.
And that's 14 feet above the root ball, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Anything else for the board to consider? Go ahead, Steve, you have a question.
Well, I just wanted to clarify, in addition to making the wall wider to support the tree planting, you're also going to be making the wall higher. Is that right?
I don't think we're going to make it higher because the current height matches the ground level of the neighbors. So we're basically going to keep the height, but just make it wider so we can plant trees on top of that. The current height is already 2 foot and 2 to 3 foot.
Thank you.
But yeah,
it's just going to be extended 5 feet, correct? Not raised 5 feet, just extended 5 feet.
No, extend 5 feet so you can plant trees.
When I read that originally, I thought extended 5 feet was mean extended up. You're talking about making it wider, longer. Yes. Right, yes, okay. Correct. I think, does that help with Steve? Because originally I thought the same thing. They were going up 5 feet.
Yeah.
Sorry about the confusion.
Right, so you're extending it in length by 5 feet.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions from the board regarding this?
Yeah, I had a question. I mean,
Go ahead.
it still seems, I mean, and I'm not the arborist, obviously, but I mean, it seems like there's still a small space in which to be planting trees of that size. And would the roots over time start to displace and kind of degrade that wall?
It almost appears like that's already happened from my, when I visited the site. It looks like that may have already happened.
You mean on the ground?
I mean, the wall itself, with the stone wall, if you put trees in it, will the roots grow out and push out those rocks? And I mean, will it deteriorate and degrade that wall as the roots expand? And
I mean, we talked to the landscaper, and he told us if you do it wide enough, like 5 feet, the trees should survive there.
So when you're saying 5 feet, you mean, I'm being a dead horse, I guess, 5 feet from the fence inwards.
Yeah, from the fence. So you have like 5 feet wide area to plant trees.
So it's going to reach almost pretty much to the patio area.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
So for that area, it's basically all wall to all the way to the patio, and then we plant trees on top of that.
And it's going to extend to the same point that it extends now.
To the same point, yes, where the picture says 2 foot.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
And there is included in the packet an email exchange between the applicant and the township forester, Tom Doty, where the proposal was described to Mr. Doty, and his response is that, in part, I've been to the site in years past, and I agree with your site assessment and logical reasoning for the new tree planting. You can relay this email to the Board of Adjustment.
So he's relatively confident that this would work. So we'll see what happens. And obviously, if it's a condition that everyone agrees on, it will have to be maintained. Yes. So, all right. So with that, any other questions from the board? Any questions from the audience? Questions for Ms. Liu regarding these trees and what she's asking for? I don't see any. So I will close the public portion of this meeting. Board members?
Mr. Chairman, you want to ask if there are any comments? By any
Actually,
board- by any
Yeah,
member of the public?
There's one up now. There's one up now. So we'll bring Mr. Cleary over. Just saw a hand go up.
Hi, John.
How you
Hey,
doing?
Mr. Cleary, how are you this evening? Do you have a
Good.
question or a comment or both, or?
I just wasn't sure if you were going to ask me anything at some point, or if you were closing it out.
Well, no, I mean, let's put it this way. Do you have a comment regarding this application?
No, I'm generally in agreement with everything that was said. To your point, I just wanted to make sure that, things would be maintained.
Okay, so.
If we, let's
swear him in.
swear Mr. Cleary in and get him to.
If you
identify
just-
himself.
Mr. Cleary, if you would just raise your right hand, please. Do you swear from testimony about to give in this hearing to be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Just state your name and address for the record, please.
John Cleary, 16 Great Hills Terrace, Short Hills.
And where's your property and location to Ms. Liu?
Right next door. I guess,
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah. We're on the other side of the fence.
Okay. So what are your concerns, questions, or comment?
Generally, I just wanted to make, so to your earlier discussion, right, there was 50 footers up there and we won't get into what the other neighbor did because he knocked them down and did his addition, but we were fine with the 20 footers and in talking with Yina, having the 12 footers and the trees you just mentioned, as long as they have a little bit of time to grow up, they don't need to be 20 footers day one, but I don't want them necessarily be cut or to be trimmed. They can be trimmed to so narrow so she can get her mower in and walk in and out, but we just like them to be able to grow up, over the years to a little bit higher.
Yeah,
And to
agree.
your point-
We
Yeah.
don't have any plans to cut it. We'll
Yeah.
basically let it grow.
Right. And to your point about the wall, I think, before the property mirrored our driveway and it was wider. So that's when they had the big 50 footers in there. And then when they did the addition and whatnot, they sort of dug into it. And then they sort of threw these rocks in here more aesthetically. So I think the landscaper will need to figure out, building a true retention wall that comes out the 5 feet. I think that should work so that it holds the trees. So, nothing. And then where the ones are now, I think, you were basically, because those are only like 12 foot in the way they don't really
Yeah.
do much because they come to the top of the fence, and then the ones that were there before were significantly higher. So I think she was going to move those on top of the new wall and then plant the 14 footers down where those are. So long-winded way of saying, as long as that's sort of what happens, we're good. We're good with this.
Okay. We'll take them under advisement.
Okay.
So thank you,
Thanks,
Mr. Cleary.
John.
Any other comments from the audience? I don't see any. So in that case, then we will close the public portion of this application. So board members, do you have any comments regarding this?
So I'll start. I visited the site and there was nobody home, but I could easily see through the gate what the proposed work area was. And yeah, it seems very reasonable. It's a reasonable request. I'm interested that a home was purchased without proper work in place. That's kind of surprising to me. But there's no reason why the applicant should continue to, sort of be in a disadvantaged position because of that. So I'm in support of the application. So.
Thanks, Steve. Anybody else?
I agree with everything Steve said.
Thank you. Any other comments from the board?
I'll just weigh in and say that it seems like a very sensible proposal. It's, having conditions in place that are not practical or realistic that will simply, lead to more problems down the road. Just that, what's the point to that? And it seems like, they've come up with a plan where, agricultural professionals agree with it, and the neighbor is also in support of it. This seems like a well thought out project.
Okay, so let's craft a motion. And maybe Rob, you can give some guidance here, because obviously there were, as stated, we have between 4 and 5 12-footers and 4 and 5 14-footers. And I think we should be pretty specific in terms of the number and the height.
Right. So, well, first of all, if there's going to be a motion in support of this application that someone's going to make, I would recommend that the motion include a condition that all other conditions and stipulations contained in the prior resolution would remain in effect, to the extent that they have not yet been complied with or otherwise. With regard to this motion, this would be a motion to approve an amendment to, we're not re-voting on the application. We're just voting on a request to amend a condition number 3 of the resolution. From what I heard, the applicant is proposing to plant 5 12-foot trees on top of the retaining wall, which would be extended longitudinally 4 to 5 feet out, and to also plant 5 14-foot trees on the ground in the locations that are identified on the plans that were submitted with the application. I believe one area is in red and one area is in green.
Maybe we should just say widened instead of extended. It'd be easier.
Okay.
Extended is confusing.
And then maybe we could say, maximum trees allowable given the professional advice of the landscaper. But no less than 4.
Well, the landscaper hasn't given us any advice.
I'm sorry, who was it that made the recommendation on the 4 to 5 trees?
Doty, right?
Well,
Arborist.
Town arborist.
maybe. We don't really know, because there's been no testimony from either the arborist regarding the numbers, nor have we heard any testimony from the landscaper. So it's really the homeowner that has made comments regarding quantity and size. So it's merely just.
The only thing we have is their email to Mr. Doty saying we'd like to do 4 to 5 12-foot trees in this area and 4 to 5 14-foot. And he just says that I agree with your assessment. You can relay this information to the zoning board. That's basically the extent of it.
Yeah. I guess it's letter.
So who would like to make a motion echoing Rob's comments?
And with Steve's logical amendment.
Right.
I will. I'll make the motion. Do I have to repeat it?
No, you
I
don't.
got it.
No. Can I have a second?
Second.
And that's with the conditions that that were stipulated earlier.
Right.
Correct.
Jody Sharma,
Yes.
Joseph Steinberg,
Did Joe drop
Yeah.
off?
I think Joe dropped off. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember when he dropped off, but I saw it, looked up and he's gone.
all right, that's just,
I don't see him in the audience again.
Well, let's continue the vote,
Yeah.
because he can't vote anyway.
He can't vote on this anyway. Yeah.
Steve Toger,
Yes.
Wolfgang Tutoris,
Yes.
Chandru Harjani,
Yes.
Ashley Avigdor,
Yes.
Jessica Blatt,
Yes.
Craig Plattner.
Yes. Good luck with the project, Ms. Lou.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay. All righty, let
All right,
me,
so Joe's back.
yeah. So next is.
Joe, can you turn your camera for us? There you go. Okay. Next application is 383421, 37 Keene Road, Jacqueline Stein. This is a continuation of previous testimony. Tonight we are here to go over the landscape plan.
Hi, Ms. Stein, could you just let me know who else I need to bring over? Oh, wait, I see a hand raised.
Hi,
Michael
good evening,
Ryan?
everyone. Mr. Vinny Verderamo.
Verderama, okay. Vincent Verderama. I could not
And-
remember his name. Okay, and
And
give us-
Mr. Barry Greenberg.
okay. And just for the record, Mr. Lapari has his hand raised. I believe he is the counsel for two of the neighbors. Do you want to take his question before we begin, or?
Yeah, I mean, we can, or see what comment he might have.
Okay.
Good evening. Thank you for promoting me. I had my hand raised just because I am going to be participating, obviously, in opposition to the application. So I don't know how exactly you want me to participate, but I could just remain here silent until it's my turn to speak.
That's fine. Rob, you have an issue with that?
Okay.
No issue at all.
Okay. I guess Ms. Lou needs to get taken out of the,
Yeah, I had to bring everybody over. I found that if I try to send them out before I bring the other people over, it just takes too long.
so,
Okay.
Joe, do you have something?
Yes, I have a question to address to council. Who do you represent in this case?
I
represent the applicant, Mr.
Oh.
Steinberg.
And Mr. Lapari, you represent who?
I represent Mark Pantoni and Jennifer Sanfilippo, owners of property at 52 Winthrop Road. And I also represent Michael and Marion Saffer, who are owners of property located at 48 Winthrop Road. Both properties share a rear yard lot line with the applicant.
Thank you. Joe, is that satisfactory?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Verderama, I'll throw it over to you. Obviously, we heard quite a bit of testimony on this case already, so I'd like to keep it to the to our so-called I don't even know what this thing that was submitted, if you want to know the truth, because it looks like a survey with a bunch of trees dunked on it. So I'm not even sure who the landscape architect is that did this or not, or how it was done. So why don't you speak to this, because I'm a little confused by what was submitted.
Okay, that document is a landscape plan prepared by Barry Greenberg, who is a licensed landscape architect, and he's going to testify as to the intended plan. When we left off last time, the question was, could a sufficient buffer be placed between the remote workspace and the property line so as not to be offensive to the rear neighbors? There was a lot of testimony about the intent of using giant green arborvitaes, and there were questions about the sufficiency of that. And at the end of the hearing, after putting on the record everything that that was talked about the last time around, it was decided that we would present the testimony of our landscape architect, who would speak specifically to those issues and how those plants would be utilized so as to reduce any impact on any neighbor. So this plan, and Mr. Greenberg, who prepared the plan, will explain everything on it for the board, such that I think it'll become clear as to what you're looking at.
Okay, like I said, this looks like a survey with a bunch of little green blobs dumped on it. So, how would you like to proceed from here? Who do you want to bring up?
I'd like to call on Mr. Barry Greenberg.
Great. Mr. Greenberg, was he previously sworn or no?
No.
Okay.
So, Mr. Greenberg, if you would unmute and raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm the testimony about to give in tonight's hearing to be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name for the record.
Barry Greenberg.
Mr. Greenberg, are you a licensed
Yes, I'm a licensed landscape architect. I have presented before this board before, as well as others throughout the state. My license is current.
Okay. And it's the state of New Jersey, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so why don't you take us through this plan?
Okay. Basically, like you said, it is.
Do
the
we want
survey.
to, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, do we want to have Mr. Greenberg screen share? So if he's going to walk through the plan so that.
Do you have
everyone
that
can-
capability, Mr. Greenberg, to screen share it?
I think Jackie Stein has that capability.
Ms. Stein, can you bring that up if you'd like to?
Craig, I just want to make sure everyone's looking at the same thing, and I think we should, if it's a supplemental app material that was presented, I think we should maybe mark it.
Did the board, everyone on the board should have received it via email, correct? I think, didn't they go out that way, Eileen? Okay, so it is also on the website too. So if anyone wants to pull it up now, they can do that as well. But everyone should have this previous to this meeting.
Yes, I
I'm
published
going,
it to the
I
board.
apologize. I'm going to see if I can share my screen.
Sure.
I'm not sure.
You go down to the bottom, there should be a green button that just says share.
Mhm.
Screen. You should be able to, as long as you have it saved in your document, you should be able to pull it up or wherever it's saved.
Is the board able to see my screen?
Not at this time, no.
No? Okay.
I think down at the bottom where it says share screen, Jackie, you click on that first.
Let me try right now.
It's a whole process.
There you go.
How about,
Yep.
how about right now?
You got
There you
it.
go. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
If I need to move anything, please let me know.
Sure.
Okay, so Mr. Verderamo, I believe in terms of the applicant's exhibits, we would be up to A3. Is that right, Eileen?
You're muted.
I believe that's correct.
Yes. Let me just check the-
So why don't we identify what's up on the screen as A3, and Mr. Greenberg, if you can lay a foundation for this document, please.
Okay, this document is the survey for the property. It shows the location of the house, the wood deck, the pool, and the shed. The three circle trees in the back are large existing trees. The one in the center is really in the property of the back left neighbor. The other two are on this property, one of them above the wall and one below the wall. What this plan is showing is removing all of the existing trees above the wall, which are large evergreens, many of which have no lower growth to them at all, and then replacing them with green giant arborvitae. The reason that green giant arborvitae were selected was because of the 4 trees that would be used most commonly for screening, being white pines, Norway spruce, hemlocks, and green giants. The 3, the hemlock, the pine, and the spruce, have a tendency with age to become very open and sparse and more tree-like, whereas the green giant arborvitae stays full all the way to the ground. I have never seen one that becomes open and tree-like. The green giant arborvitae is also one of the faster growing screen trees, capable of growing almost 3 feet a year in height in full sun. It is also one of the most shade tolerant evergreens. The only other one that is as shade tolerant is probably the hemlock. But as the neighbor in the back left corner knows, they become extremely tall and sparse, and they're subject to a number of diseases. So they're really not recommended for planting anymore. The green giant arborvitae also is tolerant of moisture. I know the neighbor in the back left was complaining that there was water issues, so that the green giant arborvitae could be a way for the trees to thrive and absorb moisture.
Now, can I proceed with my questioning?
Sure.
Okay, so Mr. Greenberg, you're very familiar with the site, correct?
Correct.
Okay. When these green arborvitaes would be planted, do you have an opinion with regard to how that would affect the visibility of the rear yard from the neighbors behind the property?
The green giant arborvitae will, in a few years, become a solid barrier. The neighbor to the back left, because of the way the trees are going to be located, and the fact that they're not looking straight on, they're looking kind of on an angle to them, are going to have complete screening of the shed at the time of the planting. The neighbor behind, I guess lot 13, would then be able to see a little bit in between the trees until they have filled in. Typically, the younger the tree you plant, the faster it adapts to being transplanted, the faster it then gets back growing again. Typically, I like 6'7", 7/8". In this situation, I recommended 8 to 10s, just so that we initially start with more screening of the shed itself from lot 13.
Do you have an opinion with regard to the suitability of this tree with regard to this geographic area?
By far, it is the best tree suited for this area.
Do you anticipate any problems in the planting of these trees?
No, because what we're doing is all of the existing trees above the wall are going to be removed, the roots ground down, which will provide a very good location for the new trees to grow. There'll be a lot of sunlight, and as a result, they should thrive in their location.
Can you describe for the board the appearance of the trees and their maintenance requirements, if any, on both sides, meaning that facing Ms. Stein's property and that facing the rear neighbors with regard to any type of maintenance issue?
The green giants require almost no maintenance. If you're trying to keep them a little bit thinner, you can shear the sides on them, but that is not something that is really necessary to do. But they are a very fast grower. They could reach 30 to 50 feet without any problem they're growing three feet a year. So in 10 years, they're going to be close to 40 foot tall.
And would it be fair to say that once they all grow in, it's going to basically create a continuous curtain wall on the back of the property that'll completely obscure the remote work area?
Oh, completely. There's no way anybody will be seeing through this wall.
Is this, in your opinion, the best solution to the issue of site visibility with regard to the shed?
Yes. And on top of that, these are very highly deer resistant.
Okay.
So you don't have to worry about browsing where the deer eat the bottom 4 feet of the trees.
That's important. Now, you've previously used these type of trees for the similar type of application?
I have planted them many times in shady and sunny conditions, and they always thrive. I planted them in wet areas where other trees have suffered, and again, these have thrived.
So is there any question in your mind that these trees are particularly suited for the intended purpose today?
They definitely will do the trick. I would not recommend any other tree for this job.
How long would it take you to install all of these trees?
Once the existing trees are down and their stumps ground, this is a couple-day project.
Do they serve any purpose with regard to any kind of a noise barrier as well when they're grown in?
It's more of a visual barrier. Sound is tough. Sound travels in all directions. I mean, it may muffle a little bit, but the only way to truly block one sound is with another sound.
Okay. And not only will it screen off the remote work area, but it'll also screen off the pool area as well, correct?
Correct.
So in effect, once we put these in, it'll become a much more private backyard.
For, lot 6, lot 13, and lot 14.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, could you stop sharing your screen, please, Ms. Stein? Thank you. Mr. LaParry, do you have any questions for Mr. Greenberg?
Only a couple. I think, Mr. Greenberg, you said that there would be complete coverage upon planting of the structure?
No, I did not say upon planting. I said in a few years.
Okay, about how many years till there's coverage of the structure, complete coverage?
I would say probably 3.
3 years? Okay, so in addition to the 2 years, it'll have to be 5 years that the neighbors will have to look at the shed total before there's some complete coverage.
Why do you say 5?
Well, they've been looking at it for 2, so I'm adding it'll be 5 years of an inconvenience of having to look at it.
The eye tends to stop at the first thing it sees. So visually, you will not really be looking at the shed. Your eye stops at the trees. Plus, on your neighbor's property directly behind, they have plant material below the wall, which we are not removed. Actually, it's on the Stein's property, but it's below the wall. They own probably about 4 feet, I believe, below the wall, which also has plant material.
What's the distance between the structure that's been erected and the fence that's there right now?
I think it might be about 7 feet. I don't have that number in front of me.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all the questions I have for Mr. Greenberg.
Any questions from the board for Mr. Greenberg? Go ahead, Steve.
Mr. Greenberg, could you just give a little testimony as to the fact that the neighbors are below, right? They're sort of downhill from where you're going to be doing this plantings. What impact does that have, if any, on the plantings coverage, the neighbor's view? Well, give us some thoughts as to what it's like to be below the plantings and, as opposed to maybe, level with it, for example.
Okay, there is roughly a 3-foot high retaining wall at the back end of the Stein property. The Steins own probably about another 3 or 4 feet below the wall, which is at the grade of the rear neighbor's property. For that reason, I was planting above the wall so that the plants are the full 8 to 10 foot tall when they go in. The fact that the Stein's property is higher than the neighbor behind gives the impression that the building is actually taller than it really is, because it's raised 3 feet by the height of the wall. But once these trees go in, I think the height of the roof is maybe around 11 feet tall, something like that, maybe 11 or 12, I don't know exactly, but within a couple of years, these will be over the top of the building.
Great, thank you.
Rob?
Mr. Greenberg, just a couple questions. You identify on A3 a large maple on the neighbor's property, some tulip trees that are to remain. And my question is whether the proposed plantings of the green giants, in your professional opinion, are going to compromise the integrity, root systems, et cetera, of any of those existing trees.
The 2 trees that are below the wall, the one that's in the corner of the center of the yard, the corner, that one is below the wall and will have, the planting of these trees will have absolutely no impact on that tree.
Are you talking about the large maple that
Correct.
is
The large
located
maple.
basically where lots 13 and 14 meet?
Correct. That is
Okay.
below the wall. The
Mhm.
planting of the arborvitae will have no impact on that. In the right-hand corner of the Steins property, there's one tree, a large tulip that is above the wall, and there's another one below the wall. The one below the wall will not be impacted. The one that's in the right-hand corner, when the trees get planted, we work around the existing roots and so that we can, get it in without disturbing or harming as many roots. That tree will probably grow at a slightly slower pace than the other ones, just because of root competition, but that also is not really providing much screening.
You mean the one in the corner?
Yeah, the one all the way in the back right corner.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for, go ahead, Ashley.
Mr. Greenberg, did you consider, or is there even space to plant a second row of either the arborvitae or a different plant material behind what you're planting in front of the shed?
What do you mean by behind?
Well, you said
Behind-
there's like 7 or 8 feet between the fence and the shed. I don't know the thickness of the green giants or how thick that they will grow. Is there space to plant something else behind it, in front of it, I should say, to further buffer the view?
Well, by in front, it would be on the down, you're talking about the downhill neighbor's property.
No, on the applicant's
On the Stein property?
Yes.
There's absolutely no need to plant more. It's really a waste because in 3 years, these plants are going to be touching one another. It's really a waste and it's overplanting.
In your opinion, would it fix the problem of waiting 3 years for it to fill in though?
No, if you were that concerned, I could, instead of 6 feet apart, I could plant those 5 feet apart or 4 feet apart, but I still think that's overplanting. You really don't want to put in trees and when you're planting them, have them touching to start. That's really not the best way to plant material. You want it to grow in naturally. And these things grow so quickly. It's basically a waste to plant, like a second row or jam them in. But like I said, if it became a requirement, yeah, you could go 5 feet apart. But I believe I had on there 6 feet spacing. I don't remember. But even that is pretty close together. These trees get to be 15 to 20 feet tall, wide if you just leave them.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Greenberg from the board? Any questions from the audience for this witness? With the exception of the people represented by Mr. Lepari. Any comments from the audience? Counselor, you have anything else?
I have a bunch more. I don't know if it's.
Oh, wait, who's Eileen Klein? Just raised her hand. So we'll bring her over. Mr. Lepari, that's not your client, correct?
No, that's not my client.
Hi.
Hi, turn your camera, please. Thank you very much. Do you have a comment, Ms. Klein?
I do.
Then we need to swear. I swear you in. I think she was previously sworn, but
I was.
okay. Can you just verify that, Eric?
You want me to re-swear her?
Yeah, let's do that anyway.
Okay. Do you swear from testimony about to give tonight's hearing to be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes.
State your name and address for the record, please.
Eileen Klein, 36 Keene Road, Short Hills, New Jersey.
Now, Ms. Clean, you live across the street, correct, from the property?
Yes.
Okay, please proceed.
I just want to comment on Mr. Greenberg's testimony. I know Mr. Greenberg's work from recommendations by our arborist, and I know that he knows what he's talking about with the plantings and stuff like that. So I'm quite confident that what he's going to do will be the right thing to do to provide shading or barrier, whatever you call it, a nice curtain for the neighbors. To clarify what the, I'm sorry, I don't know the lady's name who asked about planting a second row. I understand your concern, but we have quite a bit of plantings at our house, and I've got to tell you that overplanting might look fine this year, but in 3 years, you're going to see it way too crowded and it won't look good and nobody will be happy with it, the backyard neighbors or the Steins. So I really urge you to, go by what Mr. Greenberg is recommending because he knows what he's talking about.
Thank you, Ms. Klein. Is there any other people from the audience that have any comments regarding this case? I don't see any. So, Mr. LaParry, I will give it to you quick before I will let Mr. Verderama sum up. Do you have anything, Mr. LaParry, to add?
Looks like he's frozen.
Does.
So let's try to get Mr. Lepari back in real time. I don't know if Mr. Lepari at this point wants to, oh, there he goes.
Maybe he's coming back.
Yep.
Yep, you're
Hold
muted.
on, Mr. Lepari.
You're
Wait,
muted.
can't hear you. Wait.
Sorry
There we
about
go.
that, everybody. I got frozen and then I muted myself when I reconnected.
No problem. So why don't you take the floor for a minute or two and see what you need to say?
Yes, thank you. I have witnesses that I have on the call with me that I'd like to present, if I may. I'm going to start with, if she's on the call, Jennifer Sanfilippo Pantoni. I don't know what the name would be because I'm looking for it as well. Maybe if she could raise the hand if it's not raised.
There's an Mark.
Mark is also the client. He might be with her.
And this witness is what, Mr. LaParry?
This witness is the owner resident of 52 Winthrop.
That you represent.
That's correct. That's my client.
Okay.
Michael, thank you. Why don't you have the other two witnesses first? Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Why don't you have the other two witnesses first? I'm not sure that there's a need for Mark and I to speak again, but.
Okay. I have also with me Michael and Marion Saffer, who are also on the call. They're also my clients.
But each of these parties testified in the last hearing.
Yes, they're going to make some additional comments.
Directed to Mr. Greenberg's testimony?
Mr. Verderamo, to the extent that additional evidence is being presented in reaction to the testimony presented by Mr. Greenberg, it is certainly appropriate.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm trying to define the limit of it.
Mr. LaParry, I will ask you to question each person individually, meaning not to have them both all talking at the same time.
I will ask them politely to speak one at a time for the benefit of everyone on the call and especially the court reporter.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Saffer. I think you had some additional comments that you wish to share based upon.
Do we need to excuse me, do we need
Yeah.
to
They were already
them in?
sworn, but I'd re-swear them again. Let's do that.
Okay, if you would just raise your right hands, please.
Both of us together?
Yes, if you're both going to testify. Do you swear affirm testimony you're about to give in tonight's hearing to be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Just state your names and address again for the record, please.
Marianne Saffer, 48 Winthrop Road, Short Hills.
Michael A. Sapper, Saffer, 48 Winthrop Road, Short Hills, New Jersey.
Okay, Mr. Lepari, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Saffer. Individually, please not both at the same time. Can you please share with us the comments that you wish to share with the board?
Yes, I'd like to state my name is Dr. Marion Shapiro Saffer. I've lived at 48 Winthrop Road in Short Hills for over 30 years. I myself have planted giant green arborvitae in my backyard and have provided a picture of what it looks like. If my attorney can share that with everyone. On top of that, my property fence is only 1 foot from the retaining wall, not many feet.
Okay, wait, hold on a second. So,
This is a picture.
all right, wait. I'm sorry, Dr. Saffer, you gotta wait,
Sorry.
all right?
She's
So
not used to this.
That's okay. This is, I believe we're up to, Mr. Lepara, we marked this as O2.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm gonna ask certainly that any exhibits, just like last time, that you enter be provided to Eileen at the end of this proceeding.
Absolutely.
Okay, so this is O2, and we're looking at, it looks like some planted green giants. If you can have Mr. Lepari, your client, provide a foundation for this photograph.
Yes, sir. Mrs. Saffer, if you will, if you could please explain what it is that we're looking at. And if you took this picture, maybe you could tell us when and where it was taken.
This picture was taken approximately 1 month ago. It is on the right side of my property. It has been planted about 25 years ago. As you can see, the deer come and eat the bottom of the trees, approximately 5 feet high. You can see the bareness of what's going on with these arborvitaes. I do not believe that if these arborvitaes are planted on the property, that they will successfully shield the office or shed, because you can see that the deer come and eat them and you can see right through them. Also, I'd like to state for the record that my fence in my backyard is only approximately 1 foot from the retaining wall. I don't know why he thinks it's 7 feet away. And that there is absolutely no space in that area to plant anything of any degree. I have another picture that I'd like to share with you of the rear of my yard, the fence, next to the retaining wall, on how every single tree and planting that I had there for over 20 years does not exist anymore, because when the structure was built, it destroyed every single tree and bush next to my fence behind the retaining wall. So if my attorney can show that picture, I'd appreciate that as well.
Yes, just
when the structure was built, several things occurred on my property. All the trees and bushes that lined our adjacent fence died. Trees and bushes that were planted over 25 years ago and were thriving until the structure was built. At the same time, all the koi fish and goldfish that I had in my—
Wait. 1 second, Ms. Saffer.
Yes.
Just to make sure we have the correct photograph. Is this the photograph you were
Yes, it
referring to?
is. This is the photograph.
Okay, we can mark this photograph as 03. and I will provide it to the board following the hearing. Mrs. Saffer, if you can please just explain again briefly what exactly we are looking at, who took the photo, and what approximately when.
I took this photo at the same time I took the other photo approximately 1 month ago. This is a photo of my backyard. The fence on the ground belongs to me. The retaining wall belongs to the neighbor's property. As you can see from the picture, there's approximately 1 foot between our fence and their retaining wall. On top of that, you can see many trees that have died. There's not a single real planting along that fence. And I can assure you, 2 or 3 years ago, before the structure was built, that the entire fence had rhododendron and other plantings, lilac trees, flowering bushes. They have all subsequently died. So this is what we are looking at currently. On top of that, to the right of this, I had a koi pond, and every single fish, goldfish and koi in my pond adjacent to the fence died mysteriously, as well as all the water lilies in my pond after the structure was built. The water runoff is so pervasive that the grass is constantly wet. And now I have sections of my yard, as you can see, where grass will not grow due to the accumulation of the water. When it rains, I have a raging waterfall that runs down my stone wall onto my driveway. I believe I have a picture of that as well. Besides the collapse of the section of my stone wall that is beginning to occur, I have water that freezes along the side of my driveway, making it very hazardous for me to walk there. Because of all these physical issues I now face due to the structure, I also have a devaluation of my property and cannot plant anything along the back wall of my property because nothing will survive. And I look at this every day when I look out my window from my kitchen and my bedroom. The deer come and eat all the plantings, as you can see with the giant arborvitae, and I do not believe that they will be sufficient to hide what I am seeing right now. This picture was taken April 16th, 2018.
Mrs. Zakari,
We'll mark this as 04.
As you can see, what happens is an amazing amount of water when it's raining runs down and waterfalls over my property from Pantone to me. And this creates quite a hazard on my driveway and just very difficult that the wall is also beginning to collapse because of the water runoff. I want to assure you that this is not a minor matter. As you can see, our backyard has been destroyed by this structure. And finally, I would like to ask the council this question. How would you feel if your neighbor built an imposing structure in your backyard without a variance, without a permit, or even with inspections? A structure that's ruining my property and devaluating it all at the same time. Would you stand for it? And what does that mean for our town of Short Hills? That now anyone can build a structure wherever they want without following the bylaws of our town, and the structure allowed to remain, even though it is destroying other people's property. Are my neighbors so privileged that they can do whatever they want without any consequences? COVID affected each one of us, but that does not give anyone the right to build illegal structures without our town's approval and without thinking how that would affect anyone else. We cannot use COVID as an excuse to act on our own and selfishly think of ourselves and our own needs. I'm asking this committee in no uncertain terms to look at the destruction of my property and remove this illegal structure. Planting arborvitae between it and my property will not save what's going on, as you can very obviously see what happened to my property after this structure was built. I'm asking the committee to really think about what this structure is doing to my home. Thank you.
Thank you very
And
much.
please come and visit my property. Come for a site visit so you can see exactly what happened. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have any more questions for this particular witness.
Am I allowed to ask some questions?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, can you please bring up the picture that was dated April 16, 2018, please?
Was that, do you recall what we marked it as? Was it the first one, the
The
second
last
one? or
photo,
the
it
third?
was the last photo you put up.
The last photo. Yes, I can bring that up.
Thank you.
This picture, council?
Yes. Dr. Schaefer, it was your testimony that you took this picture. on
Saffer.
April-
Yes, I
Sorry.
did take this picture,
Ma'am,
but
Please allow me to finish my question before you answer, okay? It'll
Sure.
make for a better record, and you don't want to answer a question that I didn't ask, okay? You took this picture on April the 16th, 2018?
yes, I did.
Okay. And you would agree with me that it shows your backyard flooded, yes?
No, this is my driveway.
That's your driveway. And there's water, it's got a lot of water on it, does it not?
There is water on the driveway.
And there's water pouring over that retaining wall there?
Yes, there is.
And your driveway isn't, I don't have a survey of your home, so forgive me if I say something incorrectly. I'm just trying to understand this picture. So there's water cascading over, if I'm looking at this picture correctly, it seems like there's water cascading over that rock wall, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And again, this was in 2018.
This is how it started in 2018, yes.
Okay. So you've had this problem for at least 4 years then, huh?
I have had the problem, but since the structure was built, I wish I had a more current. It's more significant. The rock wall is now covered in a waterfall. And if you'd like, the next time it rains, I can show you even more of a waterfall that occurs
Okay.
now.
Dr.
because of the
Well,
structure.
let her finish.
Well, no,
Can you let
actually,
her finish?
I want to cut her off because she's giving another speech and she's really not answering my question.
Well, I think you can give her an opportunity to answer the question and maybe she'll be able to be responsive to the whole
All
question.
right, let's move on. Mr. Verderamo, ask your next question, please.
Sure. So the rock wall that's there with the water cascading over it has been dealing with this water runoff for at least 4 years, yes?
I have been dealing with it, yes.
Okay. And that water comes from where? From your backyard?
No, the water runs along the Pantone property and our property along the wall and cascades down. So it runs along our shared property.
Okay, from your next door neighbor.
Correct.
Okay. And that's from the backyard going out toward the street?
That's correct.
Okay. So then there's been a water runoff issue along your property line with the Pantones for at least the last 4 years.
Actually,
Yes.
there's been no water damage to my property. It's actually been on the Pantone property.
And the water damage on the Pantone property has been going on for the last 4 years?
I
You
think
would
that
have to-
she
you
might
would
not be
have
the
to-
appropriate person to ask the
You
question.
would have to ask them that.
I believe me that I will, but I'm trying to understand the significance of this photograph. So now when you took this picture 4 years ago, there was a water runoff problem coming from your backyard along the Pantone property line from the back going forward toward the street, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And the building that we're talking about here, the work shed, that wasn't constructed 4 years ago, was it?
No, it was not.
Okay. There had been an existing shed on that spot prior to that, right?
I never saw an existing shed, so I can't answer that question. There was never a shed that I observed.
Okay. And yet nonetheless, for at least the last 4 years, you've had this water runoff issue along your property line with the Pantones, coming from your backyard out into your driveway and then down toward the street, correct?
That's correct.
And yet you want to attribute that to this building now.
No, I didn't attribute that to the building now. I said after the structure was built, that the amount of water that runs down my property is so much more significant now that it's almost like a raging waterfall. So what I had before, which was some mild water runoff, is now a raging waterfall. And if you'd like, the next time it rains, I can submit a picture, and I should have done that, of what was and now what is. Also, I showed you a picture of my backyard since this structure was built. Every single tree, every single bush died.
You don't have any photographs for this board this evening that show those plants that you claim died, do you?
I do not, I'm sorry.
You don't have any experts that can testify as to any causation of why those plants died, do you?
Well, it could be that.
It's a yes or a no, ma'am. Do you have an expert that'll tell this board why those plants died?
I don't have an expert, no.
Okay. You didn't hire any kind of a landscape architect to address the issue of any water runoff with regard to anything that may or may not have happened in your backyard, correct?
We do have a landscape expert here tonight. I'm not sure if he's addressing that issue.
And you don't have any kind of a biologist or anything that would address the
No,
issue
I
of the
don't,
koi
no,
pond?
no.
Okay. So we don't know what happened in your koi pond, do we?
I have no comments on that.
Okay. You don't know whether it could have been any type of chemical infiltration from fertilizer or anything else, do you?
I had my pond for 25 years. I never had an issue.
But you're trying to say, well, look what happened, and it has to be because of this.
I think she's already answered the question several times. You've asked it different ways.
I would
You
agree.
can
Let's
answer the
move on.
question.
I would agree. Let's move on.
Thank you.
Are there any structures in your backyard, ma'am?
Other than the koi pond,
Yeah.
I have a patio,
Okay, and that's all?
correct.
Okay. All right. Is it your position that the, no, strike that. That's all I have for this witness. Thank you.
Thank you. Could you please stop screen sharing?
Oh, sorry about that. Yes, thank you.
Any other questions from council?
You're asking about Mr. Verderamo?
Yeah, are you bringing them over or?
No, I have additional witnesses I'd like to have
So,
testify.
wait, hold on. Mr. Lepari, you have no redirect for this witness, correct?
That's correct. I don't have any.
All
redirect.
right, so do you have another witness that you want to present?
Yes, I do. In the audience, I have a Jeffrey Slaff. Trying to see if he's in here. Maybe he
I
can raise
see
his
him.
hand. Okay.
Is Mr. Slath being offered as an expert, Mr. LaParry?
Yes. I'm
objecting to his testimony. There's been no notice given whatsoever. We have no records, we have no reports, we have no drawings, we have nothing from this witness. And I'm going to object to his testimony. If counsel had intended to present this testimony, he certainly should have given us the benefit of knowing that beforehand so that we could be adequately prepared to conduct an appropriate cross-examination.
Mr.
Totally improper for him to testify.
Mr. Verderamo, your objection is noted. I will state that under, as you know all too well, under the municipal land use law, while an applicant is required to provide all of their plans and exhibits that they intend to rely on and witnesses in support of their application, there is no requirement under the municipal land use law or even common law for an objector, right or wrong, to provide a report or even reveal the identity of witnesses prior to a hearing. While it is commonplace in some cases to do so, as a professional courtesy, there is nothing technically improper with Mr. Lepari presenting an expert witness, certainly subject to your cross-examination and your objections noted.
Thank you.
Mr. Lepari, what will Mr. Slaff be testifying to or as?
So Mr. Slaff is a experienced realtor in the area, and he's going to be opining on the impact as far as property values.
Go ahead, Rob.
Mr. Lepari, there's case law right on point that a realtor, unless he is a licensed or she is a licensed appraiser, cannot testify as to impact on property values. The appellate division has ruled on this. It is deemed to be a net opinion. And as a result of that, Mr. Slaff cannot, if he's a realtor intending to testify as to impact on property values, that is something that is not proper and should not be considered by the board.
Mr. Slaff is also going to testify about the marketability of the property, not necessarily about the value. So we could disregard any of that. And he could testify also about the marketability of the property.
Well, again, I think we're slicing two different sides of the same onion, aren't we?
Maybe we could let him testify and then.
Well, no. We're not just going to let him testify and see where it goes. I do tend to agree, subject to what Mr. Slaff's going to say, that it's possible for a licensed realtor to provide relevant testimony for purposes of a land use proceeding as to certain aspects of marketability. But to be crystal clear, he is not to testify in any way, shape, or form as to impact on property values.
Okay.
And that would include sales price, et cetera.
That's absolutely correct.
Well, I'm going to then call my witness if I could. Mr. Slaff, you need to be sworn in, please.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm testimony about to give in tonight's hearing to be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth? I didn't hear you.
I do.
Okay, just state your name for the record, please.
Jeffrey Slaff. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Slaff. If you could please provide the board with your professional background and some of your professional experience.
Thank you. Yes, I've been a realtor in Millburn and Short Hills for the past 12 years.
Thank you. And where do you work currently?
Currently, I'm with Keller Williams, but I've been up until last week, I was with Weichert Realtors in Short Hills since 2010.
How many houses would you say that you viewed or listed in the Short Hills area?
Well, I've listed and sold dozens. I have viewed, shown, previewed, probably hundreds.
And can you tell us what you did in anticipation of this hearing?
Well, I went to view both. I went to view both properties. And I prepared a market analysis, try to assess a suggested listing price. But that's
we're not going down that road.
Mr. Lepari.
I just asked what he did. He's just telling you what he did. I didn't ask any questions on that, so we don't have to object just yet.
I went to the property and I went to both properties, looked at them from inside and outside, and looked at the structure in question.
Okay, can you tell me, based upon your experience, have you ever seen a structure, I guess, similar to this?
No, not really. I have not. No.
What structure are we referring to?
I'm referring to the illegal structure that was built on the applicant's property. Mr. Slaff, did you understand the question?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And can you tell me what your opinion was when you saw the structure?
Well, I was struck by the building's size and its height, especially how it looms over the properties behind it and below it, plus the location and the proximity to the property line.
Yeah, based upon this, upon what you saw with regard to the illegal structure, would you do you think that this would have an impact on the abilities of the Pantones or the Saffers to, list and market their home?
Yes, I do.
And what impact do
I
you
find
think?
this testimony to complete hearsay. This is hearsay.
Yeah, this is,
we're totally off the rails here. Okay. Mr. Slaff, are you currently licensed as a real estate agent?
I am.
Okay, but this is not even relevant to this case.
I think it is relevant because the case law states that the board has to consider both the impact to property values and the visually desirable effect of the neighborhood.
Based on
And-
whose testimony, though? I mean, Mr. Slaff is not.
Mr. Slaff. I'm sorry, Mr. Lepari. Mr. Slaff is not a licensed professional planner, correct?
He's not a professional planner.
And so can you provide a proffer based on the questions you've asked so far as to what you're presenting Mr. Slaff for?
Mr. Slaff was just about to testify about the impact upon listing and selling the home, and that as a result of the illegal structure that was erected, it becomes an unmarketable property for the neighbors.
Okay, and when you say unmarketable, are you saying that it would be illegal for your clients to list their property?
No, I'm just saying it would be undesirable compared to the alternative of the structure not being there.
It's Mr. Verderama, do you want to comment on that?
I mean, this is reaching to the nth degree.
Yeah, I think this is way outside the scope of this.
Yeah, this is somewhat absurd, candidly, especially in the current market conditions. I mean, this is ridiculous.
Well, Mr. Verderamo, I respect your opinion, but you don't know much more than Mr. Slaff.
Mr. Lepari, please
Yes,
don't
sir.
be argumentative.
Well, he called me ridiculous, and I think that was argumentative.
Mr. Chairman, and members of the board, I haven't heard anything, and that's why I asked for the proffer as to the purpose, the relevant purpose for Mr. Slaff's testimony. We've established that he cannot testify as to impact on property values. There's a statement that states that it makes the property unmarketable. I don't see how that's relevant based on this witness's testimony and his area of expertise.
I would agree. I think we need to move on. So, Mr. Lepari, do you have anyone else you'd like to bring forward? Because I think this is complete hearsay.
Okay, Mr. Slaff is testifying directly, but if you want me to if he's not going to be able to testify any further, I do have another witness, and that would be Vincent Solis.
Okay.
Do we see him in the audience? I don't see him.
Yeah, he's there.
Mr. Lepari, how do you spell his last name? Oh, there he is. Okay. Got it. Yeah, thank you.
Salese.
Yeah, thanks.
Mr. Solis, could you unmute yourself?
Mr. Solis, if you would just raise your right hand, please. Do you swear affirm testimony about to give in tonight's hearing to be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name and address for record, spelling your name, please.
My name is Vincent, Vincent, Solis, Salese. My address is 52 Ridge Drive, East Hanover, and I'm a landscaper for the past 40 years.
Mr. Lepari, will you please proceed?
Thank you, Mr. Solis. Can you please just provide the board a little bit more about your background, how long you've been working as a landscaper in the area?
I've been working as a landscaper since I was a kid with my dad. I full-time from 18 years old till now.
Where do you work currently?
Currently, I work in Livingston and Short Hills.
And what's the name of the company?
Vincent Solis Landscaping.
And you own that company yourself?
Yes, I do.
Since about when?
30 years.
And you work primarily in Livingston and Short Hills?
Yes.
Were you able to visit the Pantone and the Saffer house?
Yeah, one second. Mr. Solis, do you work on these properties?
No.
Okay.
Are you a licensed landscape architect, sir?
No.
Gonna move to Barr's testimony.
He's established that he's been a landscaper.
He may be
for
a
the past 40
landscaper,
years.
but he's not a landscape architect.
That's fine.
Mr. Verderamo, he can present, the objector can present non-expert testimony, and the board can accept it for what it is, as long as it is relevant to the issues at hand before the board.
Thank you, Mr. Solis. You were able to visit the Pantone and the Saffer houses?
I was able to visit the Pantomi's house.
Okay,
Yes.
and you saw the illegal structure that was built on the applicant's property to the rear?
Yes,
of
I
the
did.
Pantones?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and you saw earlier today the plan to put some green giant arborvitae between the structure and the fence on the applicant's property?
Yes, that is a very difficult area. There's only 6 feet of space between a retaining wall and the structure, a shed. That means if you start digging behind that wall, that wall is going to collapse. If you see the pictures that Mrs. Saffer showed, the wall is already collapsing. And the shed is about 13 feet high. And there was Mr. Greenberg, I think, Mr. Greenberg said they were about planting about 8 to 10 foot green giant arborvitae. So green giant arborvitae are pear-shaped. That means that the last 4 feet of the tree doesn't give you any coverage. So 8 to 10 foot probably give you about 6 feet of coverage. So you would need another tree in between to cover that space. And there's no way you're going to put 2 rows of green giant arborvitae into that space at 6 feet or less, because you have to you can't really plant that close to that wall.
Another question that came up, and Mr. Greenberg had indicated that the green giant, I think his quote was highly deer resistant. Do you have any experience with deer eating the arborvitae?
They used to be deer resistant, except for the last few years. I can get addresses. You'll see that the deer damage is pretty much the same as the Emerald arborvitae or American arborvitae, basically the same damage, depending on their path.
And about how high up does the damage go on these types of trees?
Usually about 4 feet, could be even more.
So if the deer were to eat the bottom 4 feet of the structure and they're pear-shaped, is it your opinion that they would not provide very great screening coverage?
Not the bottom of it, no.
Okay, and it's also, so it's your opinion also that there's not enough room to plant these green giants between the short distance from the structure to the retaining wall, is that correct?
Exactly. Not only that, is a lot of the trees would have to be removed, especially because there's other growth from I think lot 13 and 14. So it doesn't really get that much sunlight. So your growth rate on that, instead of being 2 feet, it would probably be a foot or less if they survive.
And you've dealt with these types of trees in your work?
Yes, almost on a daily basis.
And it's also your opinion, if I'm clear, that there is not enough sunlight in the area?
There's not enough sunlight in order to get that kind of growth that fast to cover that structure of 13 feet. So if you end up getting a 12-foot tree, there's probably a 4-foot ball to plant, which is almost impossible to plant in that area.
The planting, I believe, that were suggested were 10 feet, 8 to 10 feet tall. What is your opinion on that?
Well, it won't give you 10 feet of coverage. It'll only give you about 6 to 7 feet of coverage. So we have a structure behind that. It's 13 feet high, if not more.
I believe it was 15 feet.
Yes, I took a good guess of 13 feet. I wanted to be on the safe side.
Okay, and so it's just generally your conclusion as a landscaper for 40 years in the area that the proposed screening is insufficient and will not work.
It's not insufficient to cover the shed. No, it's not.
Thank you very much, Mr. Solis.
You're welcome.
I don't have any further questions for Mr. Solis.
Mr. Verderamo, your witness.
Thank you. Mr. Solis,
Yes.
you have to come back on. Hi, okay.
Huh.
When you say it's not going to provide coverage, you mean when it's initially planted, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you would agree with me that these plants grow rather rapidly, correct?
Not in the shade. No, it won't grow that much.
Okay, but it won't grow that much per year, or it won't grow that much at all?
Per year.
Okay. And you would agree with me then that as the years go on, now our expert said that they're going to grow at a rate of he believes that they would grow at a rate of 3 feet per year.
In
Do you
perfect.
agree with that
condition,
statement?
Yeah.
Okay.
In perfect conditions, yes.
Okay, now you heard him testify that he's going to take out all the other plantings, all the other growth back there except for those 3 trees, correct?
Yes, but there is.
And you would agree with me, sir, that looking from your clients, I have to reverse this. Your clients, let me turn it around. I'm sorry. Looking at it from the Pantone property, which is the Pantones is lot 14, correct?
13.
13. The Pantones is 13 and the other folks are 14. Okay. So looking at it from lot 13, the Pantones, we've got the 2 trees that are large on the left, and then there's a tree pretty much right on the property line, correct?
Yes.
Between them and the Saffers? All right.
Yes.
And the trees that the arborvitaes that would be being planted behind the workspace would be between those trees, correct?
Yes.
And there'd be no other trees blocking them. There would be no other trees in the area where the plantings are going to be, correct?
No, there's trees on the Pantome side that block the sunlight. There's shade trees
That are not shown on A3?
If you could please let him finish his statement.
Just trying to clarify what he's saying, sir.
Well, if you let him finish, it'll be helpful before you ask again.
Go ahead, Mr. Solis.
So the whole property, I don't know which property belongs to the one with the shed. There's evergreens on both sides of the yard. So then on lot 13 and 14 are shade trees. So basically, the only time those trees are going to get sunlight is at 12 noon. So there's really not that much sunlight for the whole day. The growth rate is going to be very little.
And you didn't take any measurements with regard to any kind of sunlight, did you?
No, I did not take, no, I didn't.
Okay. And this is, by the way, sir, are you being paid to be here today?
No, I'm not.
Okay. And you don't do any work for either the Pantones or the Safers?
No, I don't.
And how'd you find out about this case? Mr. LaParry called you up?
The Pantome, I got a call from Pantome to see if we can hide the structure or the shed.
Okay. From their side of the property?
Yes.
Okay. Was that going to be in front or in back of the play shed that's in their backyard?
That would be underneath the retaining wall or behind the shed. But because of there's a drop there, you would have to get like a 15-foot tree or better. And this Pantome do not have access to your yard to carry such a tree in there.
Okay. Now I have a question. So our expert, Mr. Greenberg, said that in his opinion, these arborvitaes will grow at about 3 feet a year. And you don't agree with that?
Not in those conditions, no.
Okay. But would it be fair to say then that even if he's 2/3 wrong, they would grow at a foot a year?
I'm going to object to that question.
They can, yes.
They can grow a foot a year. Okay.
But that does not cover the structure at the moment.
Correct. And nobody's saying that it will, sir. There's no testimony before this board that this is going to be an instant fix.
No, it says, I think Mr. Greenberg said that it would be covered.
Objection.
Wait.
He's not saying that. Mr. Verderamo is now suggesting the testimony from Mr. Solis. He didn't suggest anything like that.
Mr. Parry, let Mr. Verderamo ask your next question, please.
Sure. So, sir, even with this reduced sunlight that you're testifying to, these trees, these arborvitaes should grow about a foot a year, correct?
It can, yes.
Okay. And so therefore, if they go in at 10 feet.
It doesn't cover 10 feet.
I appreciate that. They grow up in their pear shape. Now,
Pear shape.
do do you agree with Mr. Greenberg's statement that these trees can grow 30 or 40 feet tall?
They can, yes.
And do you also agree with Mr. Greenberg's testimony that these are long-lived trees?
Excuse me, say that again?
That they're long-lived, that they last a long time?
Yes, they do last a long time.
Okay, so it's reasonable then, sir, that even if in reduced sunlight, that these trees, given time to grow, could get as high as 20 or 30 or even 40 feet high, correct?
Yes.
And they'll grow in, and they don't just grow straight up, they grow wider also as they grow, don't they?
After a few years, yes.
Okay, and in fact, they start to intermingle their branches. They could actually create a wall, correct?
After a few years, yes.
Okay, and that wall will continue to grow higher and higher, will it not?
Yes, but doesn't cover the structure.
It will eventually cover the structure. I listen, I'm not asking you, is it, if we did this tomorrow, is it going to block the shed? I'm not saying that at all.
Okay.
But you would have to agree with me, sir, would you not? That given time, these plantings will sufficiently cover the entire shed, and you will not be able to see it. In time? Thank you very much, sir.
Are we going to define that time?
Well, I say at least 5 years.
Thank you.
Anything further for this witness? Mr. LaParry, what else would you have tonight?
I also have the Pantonis who are going to testify at this time.
Okay, let's bring them over.
I don't believe Mrs. Sanfilippo has been sworn in.
Oh.
I have
That's
not.
the mark, okay. Go ahead, Eric.
Okay, if you just raise your right hand, you might as well both raise your right hand if you're both going to testify. Do you swear from testimony you're about to give in tonight's hearing be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Your names for the record and your address.
So Jennifer Sanfilippo, 52 Winthrop Road in Short Hills, New Jersey.
Mark Pantoni, same address.
Thank you, Ms. Sanfilippo and Mr. Pantoni. I know you have some comments regarding the application. If you'd like, please tell us what you have to say to the board.
So I do, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I thank you for the patience. And I want to state upfront that, again, we truly regret the need to take a position that is adverse to our neighbor. It conflicts with our philosophy of community, of being good neighbors. And as a working mom who's taken many a conference calls throughout the past 2.5 years, hiding in a closet, hiding in a bathroom, I absolutely sympathize with the applicant and her need for workspace, but we wish our neighbors had sought this variance relief before the structure was built. At least there would have been an opportunity to work with them and to work with this committee on a reasonable and agreeable approach. Instead, this variance is being sought after the fact, after this large structure was built and substantial harm has already been done to both our properties and to the Saffers. And I think that's the important part, that this harm isn't theoretical. We've been living with its impact for some time now. It's not only disrupted the feel and enjoyment of our backyard, which was the main reason why we purchased this property. I know that Mr. Slav couldn't testify, but I will tell you that as the property owner, I would never have purchased this property if I had gone into the backyard and had seen that structure. You heard from Dr. Saffer that there's been significant runoff issues. There's always been water issues on the property, as I understand, even from the previous owners, but those runoff issues have been significantly increased since that structure was built. And then finally, this structure was built without any oversight, without any permits. We don't even know if the electrical and other utility lines that were run into it were done accurately or it poses a safety risk. You know, whether or not the proposed plan of shielding with the green giant arborvitaes will work is purely speculative. Are they going to grow tall enough? Are they going to fill in? Are they going to actually cover the structure that we can see from almost every possible vantage point of our property? Are they going to survive? Is there going to be a blight? That's not known, but what is known, again, as I think we've gone through at length, is the harm that this structure has actually caused, and that it is significant, and it is just really disappointing and saddening that we have to be here and take a position that's contrary and adverse to our neighbor. And that's the reason why we just have to respectfully request that this variance is denied.
Thank you. And Mark, do you have anything you'd like to add, Mark?
No, I'm good for now. Thank you.
Anything else?
May I ask?
Does Mr. Verderamo
Sure.
want to ask any questions of the witness?
Yeah, Ms. Stein, could you allow Ms. Stein to post a photo, please?
Well, wait. Hold on a second. Wait, do you have any, so
Questions?
this San Filippo just testified. Do you have
Yes.
any questions for her on cross-examination?
This question, the photo that I want to publish to the board will be, now that I've gotten this testimony, this photo will be relevant to my cross-examination.
Well, hold on. That's okay. Has this photo been introduced into evidence yet?
No, I need to ask her I need her to identify something, and then I'm going to move it to evidence.
Okay.
If you put that in, please, Ms. Stein.
Oh, our playhouse.
Yeah, Ms. Sanfilippo, you recognize that structure?
I do. That's our playhouse.
That's a playhouse that is how tall, ma'am?
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay. And is that a permanent structure? Is it on a foundation?
No.
Nope.
Did you pull any permits or receive any approvals to build that
I'm
structure?
going to object. This has nothing to do with the application.
Oh, it has
So I
everything to
object
do with it.
No, it does not.
It
The
goes to a
application
critical-
has to do with the Stein property. It has nothing to do with the Pantone property.
Mr. Chairman, the witnesses testified with regard to objectionable
Their
sightlines.
backyard is not on trial tonight.
Thank you.
So do you have anything else that's not staring at their backyard, but regarding to your client?
Does that structure come into play when you look at my client's property?
Objection.
No,
Objection
it doesn't.
again. We just discussed this.
Mr. Verderamo, we're not looking at the neighbor's property tonight. We are looking at the subject's property.
So you're not going to allow me to ask her any questions with regard to the structure that's in their backyard? That
No.
they previously testified, let me finish, please. That they previously testified before this board that they find my client's structure so objectionable, and yet they have this in their own backyard. You don't think that's a relevant point?
No,
I'm
If you
sorry.
want-
I'm sorry, sir.
Wait, hold on a second. Hold on a second. If you want to ask questions of this witness that go to the witness's testimony that is relevant to the issues at hand, you can ask all the questions you want. But you're introducing a photograph of their property that is not relevant to any of the testimony that Ms. Sanfilippo just presented.
Well,
You can stop sharing your screen, please.
I think we can agree to disagree on that.
That's not.
Look, we're not introducing the entire neighborhood into evidence tonight. It's not on
Nor do I
trial.
intend to. Nor do I intend to. But there was testimony, respectfully, Mr. Chairman, there was testimony with regard to the sight lines from the backyard and how they found my client's structure so objectionable. And I wanted to ask whether the structure that they put in their own backyard in any way impacts their view of my client's property.
Not on trial tonight. So what else you got?
I'm going to call Mr. If Mr. LaParry's finished, I'd like to call Mr. Greenberg in rebuttal to Mr. Solis.
Go ahead.
I have a couple things. First of all, going back to the pictures that Dr. Saffer had presented regarding the arborvitae that were deer eaten, they do not look like they were green giant arborvitae. They look like dark American arborvitae, which are Thuja occidentalis, which is a different variety. The green giants are Thuja plicata. So I question whether or not they were even green giant arborvitae. And regarding the testimony from their landscaper, it is true that green giants grow 3 foot a year in full sun. They will grow a little slower in shady conditions, but the entire backyard, the property line, is facing south. That meaning that the trees that are on the Pantone property are on the north side, and they will not be casting shadow at all on these trees. So they will not be negatively impacting the growth rate of the trees, the green giants that we're going to be planting.
Anything else, Mr. Iterama?
No, that covers it. That covers it.
Then would you like to sum up?
Hey, wait. Mr. Lepar, do you have any questions for Mr. Greenberg?
I don't have any questions of Mr. Greenberg, but I do have some concluding remarks and some legal issues that I'd like to address. I can do it after Mr. Iterama closes.
First, let me ask the audience first if there's any other comments they have. Anyone else in the audience this evening that has any comments or questions? Well, let's go with comments for this case. I do not see any. Does the board have any questions for any of these witnesses so far? Okay, then, Mr. Lepar, you can go first.
Thank you. Just real quick to summarize the variances that are being sought here tonight, because I don't know that they've all necessarily been focused on. There's a building coverage variance. There's a lot coverage variance. There's an accessory rear yard setback variance. I was my position that I will still believe and I maintain that a use variance is required, but I'll move on. And there's also one other variance that I don't believe anybody has brought up, and that would be section DRZ 609.1E of the Millburn zoning regulations. And that section states that, and this is 609.1 is titled Accessory Uses in Residential Districts. Subsection E states that all supportive mechanical equipment for an accessory structure shall have a minimum setback equal to 3 times the accessory use setback, or shall be within 5 feet of a principal structure. So they have proposed mechanicals to be put even further into the rear yard setback and closer to both the Pantone property and the Saffer property, and have not mentioned how they should be entitled to that variance relief. There's been no discussion of that. So I think that should just be noted and considered by the board as well. Now, and I'll be brief, I just wanted to point that out, that there's an additional variance that they would need that they have not addressed. Last hearing, we heard from the applicant's planner. All of his conclusions were given before he was able to hear the testimony of any of the applicant's professionals without reviewing any reports of the applicant's professionals, and it amounts to a net opinion. I'll briefly summarize. What he did and did not say. Mr. Keller, he didn't know what was done on the shed other than they beefed up the walls. He concluded that the tree screening would be adequate without hearing the testimony of Mr. Greenberg or consulting with Mr. Greenberg. And I don't believe he even was able to say who had plotted the trees on the exhibit that they had shown at the time. He advised that the architecture and the construction was both adequate and soundproof without hearing any testimony about either of those. He acknowledged that the structure could have been built in conformance with the bulk requirements if the applicant didn't build it illegally, which means conclusively that the applicant could not show a hardship based upon any unique characteristics of the property itself. In fact, the fact that the applicant cannot find space in her 5,448 square foot home is not a hardship that requires encroachment into the rear yard, which is required to be shown by the planner. In addition to not proving that there's a C1 hardship, the applicant also cannot satisfy the C2 requirement that the benefits to granting a variance must outweigh any of the detriments. This requires that the benefits actually accrue to the community itself and not solely to the applicant. Here, the only benefit that has been shown is that Mrs. Stein doesn't have to work in a room in her house and that she could work outside. And that's not a benefit to the community, but the detriments that are to the neighbors are significant. They have this eyesore towering over their backyard. They lose, potential issues with the marketability and sale of their home. The applicant could sell the property tomorrow, and it could result in somebody practicing their rock band at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 feet away from the neighbors, Pantone and Safford. There's no community benefit whatsoever. So what do I ask of this board? Well, according to William Cox, the zoning board is established to do equity in accordance with the powers that were conferred upon it by statute. Mr. Cox had stated that having variance power, the board is designed to be the keepers of the conscience of the community in zoning matters. And the Supreme Court has held in Commons versus Westwood Zoning Board of Adjustment, 81 NJ 597, that if the size and layout of a proposed house will adversely affect the character of the neighborhood, both with respect to desirable visual environment and the value of the neighborhood properties, the board should deny the variance application. Now, we heard the testimony of Mr. Slaff briefly saying that there may be issues with marketability, and we certainly know that we've heard from all of the neighbors that there is definitely no desirable visual environment as a result of granting this variance. So to echo on Mrs. Sanfilippo, we understand that maybe Mrs. Stein made a mistake, right? And there's not an attack on Mrs. Stein. She seemed like a very nice person, but this board is not here to reward nice people when illegal structures are built to the detriment to the rest of the community, and specifically the Pantones and the Saffords, even if it was done without malice. The impact on the neighbors is far too great. And I don't know if this board, I sent a letter dated March 16th, 2022, inviting each member of the board to visit the property from the vantage point of the Saffords and the Pantones, along with a property consent to enter upon their properties. I don't know that anybody did, but I think, I would encourage them to do so before voting in favor, so that they can see the imposition of this illegal structure. And finally, if we are going to be following the rules, I think it's important to set the example to the Millburn Short Hills neighborhoods that zoning laws are not voluntary. And we know all the way back to Euclid versus Ambler in 1926, the United States says that they have to have some teeth and they have to be enforced. And this is just commonplace throughout zoning law in New Jersey and the country. So it's not where we get to build the structure and ask for relief later. I asked this board again to vote against this variance application in order to do justice for the neighbors and for the community.
Thank you, Mr. Lahari. Mr. Paramo, would you like to sum up?
Yes, we're seeking 3 variances. There's 14% permitted on the building coverage. The existing is not, the main structure is not changing. The pre-existing on the property is 16.57. The lot coverage, 35% permitted. There's an existing on the property of 46.55. You can see from the plans that have been submitted that we're significantly reducing the lot coverage down to 39%, and that will greatly increase the permeable space and water absorption on the lot. As far as the positive and negative criteria, the house itself, because of the style of the house with the open floor plan, presents a hardship in that they found, especially with the special needs child, they found it almost impossible to utilize space in the house for her home profession, which is in the healthcare industry. Thus, why the remote space was built. The real question here is with regard to the impact on the neighbors, there's been a lot of testimony both ways, but by the end of the cross-examination of their landscape expert, he agreed with me that the proposal of the giant arborvitae will, with growth of time, provide a complete shield of this premises from any of the neighbors. Okay, it's going to make what's actually, when you look at the existing condition now with the dead and dying trees, that'll all be removed. It'll improve the aesthetics for both my clients and the objectors as well. It'll be much more, beneficial and much nicer to look at than what's there now. The way the structure is built, there's no light pollution from there. There's no windows or doors on that side. And that, C variances, and that's what we're looking at here. We're looking at a C variance. They're meant to be flexible and they're meant to be adaptive. And there's really no negative impact on the intent of the zoning plan here. In fact, the testimony is that if this was 3 feet further in, it could be 18 feet high as of right. And, that's what we're talking about. The neighbor's house in the back is lower. That's why the retaining wall's there. That's why from their side, it would appear to be a taller building than it actually is. But the vegetation that we're planning on planting, if this is granted, is going to more than adequately address that. Is it going to address it as soon as it's put in? No, it won't. But that's because that's impossible. And I think it's unreasonable to expect anybody to be able to do that. But when one approaches the circumstances and comes up with a solution, this is an excellent solution to the situation. As I said, if we move 3 feet closer in, it can be an 18-tall building as of right. And it would appear to me that this circumstance that we are in, given the way we're all living these days and what the modern realities are, that this should be granted and that they should be allowed to proceed as planned and to install the vegetation. Mr. Keller fully testified with regard to the planning aspects of this. I would ask that you take all of his testimony into consideration, and I would ask that you grant the variance.
Thank you, Mr. Verderama. With that, I'll close the public portion of this hearing. Board members, what comments do you have? Joe, just unmute yourself.
Okay, I'm going to vote unless I am convinced otherwise by board members. I'm going to vote no on this matter. We've spent a lot of time tonight and at the first hearing talking about whether or not the proposed vegetation will cover what shouldn't have been there in the first place. I think that if we grant this variance, these variances, and I don't know whether there really are 3 or whether there's 4, I don't know. But if we grant this variance, what we're telling the community is you go out and find a builder who's prepared to enlarge your property or something on your property without getting permits, without getting a building permit, and then spend a lot of time of this board dealing with the issue of whether or not the proposed plantings will cover up what shouldn't have been there in the first place. This is a disaster, and we've not really spent a lot of time talking about the use of this proposed building, or the building that's illegal that's there now. There's electricity in there. That means that if this board were to approve the application, we would undoubtedly have to say that there are conditions, one condition of which would be you can't use this at night with the lights on, because that would be a very, very disturbing feature that would aggravate neighbors. But who's going to enforce that? We have a building, we have an inspector who works with Eileen Davitt, but he works during the day. We're not going to send him out at 7 o'clock at night or 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock to see whether the lights are on in this place. I think that this is a waste of time of the board when we have to spend this amount of time talking about covering up something which shouldn't have been there in the first place. That's really at the bottom of this whole thing. We're telling the community, if we approve these variances, you go out and find a builder who will do your bidding without meeting the obligations that everybody else in the community has to meet. And then we can spend a lot of time talking about covering it up later on. 3 years, 5 years? No, I don't think that yes, it is true. I went there and I will, Mr. LaParry, at least one member did take you up on your offer. I went there and I walked around in the backyards of the properties, and that building shouldn't be there in the first place, expanded the way it has been with lights and electricity in it. I think it's it would send the wrong message to the community if this board were to approve these variances. So unless I hear something that would make me change my mind, I'm going to vote no.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks, Joe. Any other comments from board members?
I'll
Steve.
go.
I'm sorry, Jessica.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Steve, you go. You go.
No, go ahead, Jessica. Sorry.
I was gonna say, I really agree with basically all of what Joe is saying. I will say, and I'm curious to get the opinions of my fellow board members. The one thing that's pulling me just a little bit in the other direction is that there was an existing structure here. And, you know, yes, they've improved in their minds, they've improved the structure, but they have reduced some of the coverage from what was, you know, what was existing by doing this project. And I'm just curious if that sways, you know, the other members of this board and makes them feel any differently. But I will say that I'm fully in agreement with what Joe is saying. I think it's very uncomfortable to make a board decision based on landscaping and hoping and assuming that the landscaping is going to grow to you know, fill it in and provide coverage for, you know, for the neighbors to make it more palatable to them. So that's where I am right now.
Thank you. Steve?
So I think, Jessica, to the point you made about the prior shed, it's my understanding on the testimony that there was a period of time where there was no shed. There was an older shed and then no shed, and then this structure went up. You know, when I visited the property and I walked into from the driveway in, there is a small little shed on the left-hand side as you walk in, at least I recall, you know, and I thought to myself, this can't be what the variance is for. And then when I saw that building, and I know we're calling it a shed, in my mind, it's a building. It's not a shed. It's a building. And at first I thought it was going to be the pool house, right? Because there's a pool constructed. In my view, this is the most, and I've been on this board a pretty long time, this is the most egregious example of a violation of, you know, of the building code perhaps, or certainly of the process by which variances are sought and approved. I don't think any reasonable person who's in the objector's position would look up at that building and think to themselves, yeah, this is a plus, this is a good thing. It's very detrimental to the neighbors. We pay a lot of attention to that. Sometimes we get views from other neighbors' houses. You know, just not that long ago, we had an applicant sort of change the design as to not block the view from a neighbor's windows, you know, from inside. I remember it was like the left side of their house. And this takes this to the nth degree. So I'm in agreement with Joe wholeheartedly, and I'm certainly in agreement with Jessica. This building, and I'm going to call it a building, but this building has to come down.
Any other comments? Wolfgang?
Yeah, I would add, you know, agreeing with everything that my fellow board members have said, I would add to that I'm also, you know, this board and myself are particularly sensitive when we're being asked by an applicant to essentially paper over something or to put to stamp something approval, which has not been properly done to begin with. That puts this board, I believe, in a very awkward spot, and I don't think that's I don't think that's something that this board should be in the habit of doing. So I do not support this application.
Anyone else? Jyoti?
I agree with my fellow board members. I think this would be sending a very wrong precedence. And we've had several such cases that we have objected to such a situation. So I would not be supporting this application.
Thank you, Jyoti. Chandru?
Concur with everything that's said. I think it's a crystal clear violation, and I don't think we should be supporting this in any circumstance.
Judging by the crowd here, is there a motion to approve?
Well, I'll move to deny.
I'll ask that next. Lacking for a failure to move, I will move to a motion to deny.
So Steve Stover made a motion to deny. I'll second it.
Joe Steinberg with a second.
Jody Sharma,
Yes.
Joseph Steinberg,
Joe, you have to unmute yourself.
Yes.
Steve
Yes.
Stover,
Yes.
Wolfgang Taturis,
Yes.
Chandru Harjani,
Yes.
Jessica Glatt,
Yes.
Craig Pleitner.
Yes. Thank you for coming in front of us this evening.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, members of the board.
We'll be moving on to our next application.
All right, next is
Calendar 385922, Ilar Mujalovic at 23 Dorset Lane in Short Hills.
no. 38.
I'm sorry, did I jump ahead?
10 Stewart Road.
10 Stewart, I'm sorry. Calendar 385221, 10 Stewart, A. Vats and Krishan.
Okay, is this everybody? All right, so who's ever going to testify, please raise your right hands. You swear from testimony about to give in tonight's hearing be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I'm sorry, this is Samantha Alfonso. I'm the attorney. We are missing a couple of witnesses.
Okay.
If you'd like to
Are these witnesses professionals that you're bringing over?
Yes,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
We do have the applicants as well. If the board would like to hear from them first, just to introduce.
Let's bring over your other professionals that you have. What's their name?
Sure. So we have Rich.
Yes, sir.
Rich Nasser,
Okay,
and we should have Mark Sunyak.
got it.
Thank you. And I believe Jay Katz may be here as well.
There he is.
Okay. I know Mark and Rich, you'll have to show your video and switch to off mute for a moment if you could.
That's everybody?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, everybody except for you, Ms. Alfonso, you don't have to raise your right hand. Everyone else, if you would raise your right hand. Do you swear from the testimony about to give in tonight's hearing be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
we do.
Yes.
All right, one at a time, we need to get everyone's name and spell your name for the record, please.
Applicants first.
Yes, I do. My name is Ashish Watts, Ashish. Last name Vats.
Hi, my name is Neha, Neha. Last name Krishan, Krishan.
Mr. Katz.
Yep, Jay Katz, Jaykatz. I'm with Anthony Sylvan Pools.
Mr. Sunyak. For you. Mr. Sunyak.
Mark, you're on mute, I think.
Now he is. Now he's on mute. Go ahead. You got to take it off.
You're on mute, Mr. Sunyak.
I'm not sure if his audio is working.
Is your audio working?
Can't hear you.
You're on mute.
You're on mute now, so you got to. There you go. Now see if you can talk. We can't hear you, so something's wrong with your microphone. So, Mr. Nusser, will you please give us your information?
My name is Richard Nusser, Nusser, 428 Patton Avenue, Piscataway, a professional engineer and planner.
Ms. Alfonso, we would need qualifications from everyone as they come up, so please keep that in mind and take it from here as to how you'd like to proceed.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Nasser, could you please provide your qualifications as an engineer and planner for the board? Is your license in good standing in New Jersey?
Yeah, I'm a licensed professional engineer in New Jersey. I've been practicing civil engineering for going on 40 some years. Appeared before numerous boards and represented boards as an engineer for the last 40 years.
And have you appeared before? Could you provide 3 boards that you've appeared before?
I believe I've been before Livingston, Warren Township, and multiple boards in Ocean County.
Is your license in good standing?
Yes, it is.
Okay, your credentials are accepted by this board. Please proceed, Ms. Alfonso.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a clarification question?
Sure.
Ms. Alfonso, are you presenting Mr. Nusser as both a professional engineer and a professional planner, or just a professional engineer?
He's focusing on engineering here. If planning testimony is needed during the hearing, I think we could have him qualified as a professional planner at that time.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Mark Sunyak?
Yes.
And could you please just provide your background?
I'm the person who designed the landscape plan for the project, and the conceptual ideas, and then I'm going to be the one that's going to implement the work.
Are you a licensed landscape professional?
Yes.
In the state of New Jersey?
Yes.
And your license is current?
I'm not a licensed landscape architect. We do have a certified tree expert on staff, though.
Okay.
And Mark, you'll have your landscape plan is going to be certified by a landscape architect?
If need be, yes. If it's something that the board will request, yes.
Ed Sage is a landscape architect. Is that correct? Of your firm?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And Jay, and could you just explain that you are your expertise in the building field, right? For pools?
I am the salesperson that designed and sold the pool.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Ms. Alfonso.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. If I could ask the applicants first. First, I'd like to give an introduction, actually. Let me explain what we're here about, and then we'll go to our applicants. We are here really for if I can't share my screen, actually. So I can show. Eileen, I have another screen here. I think I need it to be added as well. I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
My hand.
Okay. So you need both. Okay. Coming over.
Yeah.
I did see that and I wasn't quite sure what was going on.
It's just so that you can see me and I can show the
Okay. There you go.
screen here at the same time. Thank you. You cannot see my screen, can you?
No, we cannot.
Try again.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
shouldn't we ask Ms. Alfonso if she is prepared to go forward with Mr. Suniak not available apparently to this evening, or at least he's not here.
He's here.
Mr. Sun? Yes, he's here.
I believe Mr. Steinberg may be asking about the certified landscape architect being available to provide testimony with regard to that plan. The ask would be that Mr. Suniak here, who is familiar, right, and experienced in this field, works directly with Mr. Sage, the licensed tree expert, who will actually sign the landscape plan. To have Mark testify to those background details here. As might be mentioned, right, a landscape plan hasn't been officially filed. We do have an exhibit to show for the landscaping for the board's understanding.
That's acceptable.
I'm happy to have that landscape plan approved by the city forester, which is part of the HPC's review as well. So we'll have to do that anyway.
Correct. Please proceed. If you can get your screen share to work properly.
Thank you. I don't know what is happening with the screen share. So I'm going to have to use a backup here, but that will do the trick. It's just going to take me one extra moment. Okay. And now everyone should be able to actually see my screen.
Got it.
Okay, great. Thank you. So what I'm showing on the screen now is the filed engineering plans. And this is sheet 2 showing the proposed. I'm going to go back up to sheet 1 here that shows the entire property. As the board will see, this is an L-shaped, odd-shaped property. Although it is oversized at 29,000 square feet. It is this odd shape that creates the variances, creates the need for variances here. There are existing nonconformities with regard to that existing, lawfully existing single family home that is 1 and 2 stories, and the existing driveway. So we have calculated this based, I understand the engineer has placed the understood rear yard here in the hatched area, leaving really only about 2,127 square feet of rear yard area. The existing home, you'll see, has an existing patio area in this U shape, the existing U-shape home. And the pool that is proposed would go right here where it replace the existing patio as shown on sheet 2, with an average 20 by 40 square foot pool with about 8 square foot spa attached to that, an associated patio around the pool itself. There is a variance requested necessary for lot coverage in the rear yard. It's understood that Ms. Davitt has calculated at 57.8%. I understand that this includes the existing home, and over 30% of that would be the existing home. And a lot of it would also include the existing driveway. A variance is also required for the location of the existing AC unit, which is 11 feet from the quote side lot line. And for the, yes, that's for the AC unit at 11 feet, where 36 feet is required. And
Is it pool equipment or AC? You can
It's
say
for the
AC.
AC. The pool equipment is actually 64 feet.
Because your variance you have on your attachment E is for pool equipment location, not AC.
I understand, and I do think that originally it was understood that we might require a variance for that. We'd be happy to request that variance if the board feels that's necessary. However, given the setback of the current design of the pool equipment, I believe that it is conforming.
So, but did you notice for the AC equipment?
The AC
Yes.
is existing. You said
For
that-
mechanical, yes, it's the existing AC unit that
I
is
did not say anything about
non-conforming. I'm sorry?
I didn't cite the air conditioning units. I have no idea. I mean, the plans that I have show the pool equipment location 24 feet off the property line on the left side there. That says pool equipment,
Okay,
right?
thank
Is that
you.
it?
I will,
Ms. Alfonso, you're going to have your engineer testify
Yes.
as to these variances.
yes, I will. And if I
So-
could defer to him on that point, I think you're absolutely correct, Eileen, and it is that might be that it's not 11 feet though, it's the 24 feet to the pool equipment.
Correct. Let me just check the notice, make sure everything.
So your pool equipment variance is at 24 feet, not 11 feet.
Correct. We do have an existing AC unit at 11 feet. So I believe that we would request that existing nonconformity to be approved by the board.
So then you're
Although
looking for a 12-foot deviance on the pool equipment, correct? Not 25 feet?
No, what?
Yes, it would be a 12-foot deviation for 24 feet from the property line to that mechanical equipment, the pool equipment. I would like to have the engineer confirm that for me. I am the lowly attorney who, Mr. Simon, as Mr. Simon mentioned, this is not testimony. This is just to give the board a complete understanding of the variances here and why we need to seek them.
Okay.
Thank you. I think with that, we may want to have the engineer speak unless the board wants to speak with the applicants first.
No, we can continue on.
Okay.
Hey, Eileen.
I'm very confused.
Yeah,
Me too.
yeah,
Should we take 5 minutes then?
Because I'm looking at
No.
what I cited, which was the accessory structure should be in the rear yard only, and based on the way this property is shaped, it's in the side yard, for lack of a better word. So it was for that, the pool equipment location and total accessory coverage. Now, Ms. Alfonso alluded to a lot coverage, which I did not cite them for overall lot coverage, just accessory coverage. So I want to make sure that we're
Correct.
right.
Thank you.
Yeah,
It's just for the rear lot coverage over 20%.
Right. I cited for that, the pool equipment and the accessory structure shall be in the rear yard only.
Right. And technically, this pool and the pool equipment are proposed in this quote side yard.
Correct.
Okay.
So you're requesting to, go ahead, Rob. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Craig. So I'm looking at the notice. I just want to make sure that everyone's clear here.
Yeah, the notice is a little confusing.
Yeah, it says variance to permit accessory structures to occupy greater than 20% of the rear yard area.
Right, which is correct.
Okay. And
I
then
did not cite them for rear yard unoccupied because they're not actually touching the rear yard unoccupied at all. It already is what it is. They're not putting anything in that rear yard to make that any smaller.
okay, that's where my confusion
Yeah,
lied. So, all right, so they notice for that, but they don't need that.
they don't need that. They need
Right.
just the location
Thank
of
you.
the pool equipment, and total accessory coverage.
But I guess we should ask when the engineer comes up, because
Okay.
Ms. Alfonso referenced that accessory coverage, including, I thought she said part of the principal building. That's where I got also confused.
The principal building is within the setback, the rear setback, 64-foot rear setback.
But that's not where we how we
That's
calculate the
existing.
rear yard. The rear yard is calculated by the point of the house closest to the rear lot line. So the house is not in the rear yard.
So if perhaps we should go to the civil engineer and I could ask Rich a question here.
Let's do that.
So,
Okay, thank you.
so
Rich,
what?
we had talked about the calculation, right? How much square footage is there in this rear yard that you've calculated? Let me resume share. Can you see the screen, Rich?
Yeah, on our page 1 of our plan, we determined that the rear yard is 63 point something feet, 63.9 feet, right? Which there's a line that runs through the middle of the house that is shown as the rear yard limit line.
That's the required rear yard setback, right?
Right.
But the rear yard,
But the actual rear yard is 11 feet. The point where the closest point where the house.
so Rich, how much is it says right here, rear yard area, 2,000, how much square feet does that say? On the top of the plan there,
Yes.
rear yard area.
The rear yard area is, based on that 11 feet, is 2,127 square feet. And none of that is being, has any coverage in it.
Right. And what percentage is required?
20% is allowed.
Right, that's not what we're discussing here tonight. we have two variances we're contending with, okay? One's an accessory structure located in a side yard, and one's a pool equipment location. Okay, we've already established that this property has no influence on the rear yard.
Well, but
They don't need rear yard unoccupied. but they do
Unoccupied.
need- Right, but they do need total accessory coverage, because the way your ordinance is written is their rear yard area is 2,127 square feet. Regardless of where these accessory structures are, you can only cover 20% of that.
Right.
So they do need accessory coverage, but not rear yard unoccupied.
right, so the 20%,
On that.
as Eileen has interpreted it, does not necessarily have to be in the rear yard.
Right.
But we're allowed to have only 425 square feet of accessory coverage. Okay, so we need a variance for over that.
20, explain that 20% to me again. You're saying that 20% within all
Of the required rear yard of the
all the yard, all the side
2,100.
yard, I mean, all the yards.
No, 20% of 2,127 square feet, the required rear yard is what we're permitted to have total accessory structure square footage. Right, so we're over that by 1,000 something. I'm gonna calculate it quickly.
Well, you're proposing 57.8%.
That's her calculation, not mine.
So I
don't understand where that 57.8.
I think that's the question. I think that might include the
Do you guys want to take a minute and we'll come back to this application because
Attachment E doesn't even have
it doesn't have calculations on it.
coverage on it. It doesn't even, and neither does the summary of variances. So I don't even know.
Well, there's a page 2
Problem
has
is that we
calculations
wouldn't
on it.
know what we're even approving here tonight.
Page 2 has calculations of coverage on it. At least
What are
what we thought.
What are
the
you looking at
coverage was.
page 2 on attachment F?
No, he's looking, they did like an addendum to the, rather than answer each question, they just did like a 4-page.
Right, because attachment F is essentially blank.
Right. Their memorandum in support of the application, they just like, but you got to read through
Page-
everything.
yeah, right there on page 2, there's a table of zoning requirements. That was our calculation.
Yeah, but I think the problem is that according to that zoning table, it does not, unless I'm not looking at it properly, it does not identify this third variance that we're discussing.
It does not, but I think based off of this, right, we can determine what that variance is by adding the accessory square footage, right? Let me just pull it up here. 3,222 for the pool and patio, plus the pool equipment is 24 square feet.
Rob, is there a notice issue here?
Well, you know, the one question I have about the notice is that it does talk about a variance for accessory structures to occupy greater than 20% of the rear yard area, except it doesn't provide what the proposal is. And so that's, you know, I think Ms. Alfonso is entirely correct that we could, you know, certainly figure out what the request is, you know, so that the board would understand what it would be considering in terms of the proofs. I think she's right about that. It's just a question of whether under the notice that the board is comfortable in that although there's a request regarding the accessory the mechanical equipment setback and about the 20%, it doesn't state what the proposal is.
I mean, my denial letter does state what my calculations were. but
Right.
It's not been carried over to the summary of variances, and their memorandum doesn't really reflect it either.
So, we do put here what we're proposing, the construction of a pool, spa, patio, and outdoor improvements with landscaping. I'm not sure if you are looking for the exact number proposed, but we do say that we're requesting a variance for that percentage. And we also request any other variance relief that may arise during the course of the hearing necessary to realize the development as set forth, etc.
My only concern is that we can't go through this hearing trying to figure out what you need.
Sure.
So, so like I was saying, do you want to take a minute and we'll come back?
Yes.
Okay, so let's do that. We'll move on to our next case and we'll come back to you guys and see if you can put together.
Thank you.
Because like I said, we have to see some numbers here and have to understand what it is we're actually approving.
I understand.
Or denying, or however it may turn out. So,
are we correct in that it's 20% of the rear yard area? And is that the rear yard area as it exists or the permitted rear yard area?
The rear yard area is the 2,127. That's your rear yard area. Your total accessory coverage, regardless of where it is, that's the number we base how much accessory structure you can have on your property.
Okay, because
your patio and everything else, that's why you're over. If you have a very small rear yard area.
Yeah, the allowed rear yard area is 12,000 something, because it's 64 feet is the rear yard.
But that's not your rear yard because your house is there. Your house dictates
Right,
where
okay.
the rear yard starts.
Okay, so I get it now.
all right, so Ms. Alfonso, what would you like to do?
If we could take 5-10 minutes and let someone else go ahead, I would really appreciate that, and we will get those numbers for you.
Very good. Then we will continue with our next case and then we'll come back to you before we go to the next case.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
So this is let me bring them over before
Which one? 23 Dorset?
23 Dorset, yes.
All right, this is calendar 385922, folks. 23 Dorset.
I'm gonna leave previous applicants there rather than move them all out.
That's fine. To have to bring them all back, yeah.
Okay. All right, is there anyone appearing with you?
Yes.
Any professionals?
My landscape architect, Larry Butinsky from Cross River Design.
Got it. Okay.
I mean, that's a strange way to calculate it, but.
Could you guys mute yourselves?
Yeah.
Let's,
I didn't write the ordinance, don't blame me.
Allowed 400 and something.
Okay.
all right, Miss Alfonso, can you please have your witnesses mute themselves? Including Mr. Sunyak, please.
And Mr. Nusser.
328 is the accessory.
Mr. Nusser was talking.
Where's this guy coming through though?
Oh, I
yellow
see him now.
block.
Yeah, I see him.
Oh, here.
There we go.
He's muted. Okay, good.
Okay. The other two gentlemen, Mr. Majalovic and Mr. Patinsky, if you would raise your right hands, please. Do you swear from testimony about to give in tonight's hearing be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes. Yes.
Your names for the record, spelling your names, and we'll start with you, Mr.
Ilyar Majalovic, I-L-I-R. First name, last name, M-U-J-A-L-O-V-I-C. Address 23 Dorset Lane, Short Hills, New Jersey, 07078.
Larry Butinsky, B-U-T-Y-N-S-K-I, Cross River Design in Annandale, New Jersey.
Okay, Mr. Batinsky, are you going to testify as a professional this evening?
Yes, I am.
In what regard?
I'm a landscape architect. I've been licensed in the state since 1985. I've been have a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Design and Landscape Architecture from Rutgers, received that in 1979. And I've been practicing in the field in New Jersey from since 1985 on. I lead the design department at Cross River Design. I've given testimony in Millburn in front of the Historic Commission on a project of that merit, and in other towns in front of the board of the zoning board or board of adjustment in Rumson, in Summit, in Piscataway, in Berners Township, in East Windsor, in Piscataway, in Ramsey, and some others.
Thank you. And your license is in good standing?
Yes, it is.
Okay, why don't you proceed then, or whoever would like to speak first.
Great, thank you. Maybe I'll start off quickly and then I'll turn it over to Larry.
Sure.
So this way we can be really efficient of your time. I know everybody has spent a lot of time tonight, so appreciate your patience. So good evening, everyone, one more time, and thank you for allowing us to present our case to you. We are very grateful for your time and your careful consideration. I must be honest, I had initially prepared a longer statement to discuss with you this evening, but given how extended this evening has been for the entire board and everyone else, I've decided to be very brief with my opening statement. I'm here on behalf of my family, and I'm only here with my landscape architect, Larry. He's done a great job, I think, with designing a very appealing proposal, and we collectively have really made great efforts to address any potential concerns. So just as a brief introduction of our family, we're a family of 6. We have 4 young children, ages from 7 to 15. We recently moved to Short Hills, New Jersey in August 2020 in the middle of the pandemic. And as we were searching for a new home, we immediately fell in love with this town. We are really happy to be here, and we feel like it's a perfect place to raise our 4 young children. In fact, when we saw the house, we made an offer on the home the same evening. Our 4 children currently attend 3 different Millburn public schools. Our daughter is a sophomore at Millburn High School. 2 of our sons attend Millburn Middle School. And our youngest son attends 2nd grade at Hartshorn Elementary School. Our children love their new schools, their friends, and their teachers, but obviously due to the pandemic and various social distancing measures, they have been impacted in integrating into the community. In addition, because of the safety concerns, as you know, they have not been comfortable using the town's pool. Although the pandemic, as you know, has somewhat subsided, I'm not sure, it's a bit unclear if additional variants will continue to impact normal life. So when we first moved in and when we initially purchased the home, we really did not consider building a pool. However, reflecting upon the developments and the pandemic, like I'm sure with everybody else, we feel that actually would be very beneficial for our children's growth and development to be able to spend as much time as possible outside and use a pool in a safe manner. In fact, recently, all of our 4 children were found to have low vitamin D levels. We were completely surprised. One of them developed myopia. I'm not sure, I'm sure he's not the only one, but these are all things that happened during the pandemic. So why the pool? Why now? We're looking for ways really for them to spend more time outside. In addition, from time to time, my elderly parents come to visit. They're elderly, and we'd like them to be able safely to enjoy our home and potentially have a pool, play with our children, help us out. We are here, we don't, by ourselves, we don't have any relatives. You know, we have great neighbors, and we've made great strides to really try to integrate into this community. We love the community. We've talked to people in advance of this meeting. I know some people said, you know, we are totally fine. We love having you a pool. We've grown up with pools. Some people have expressed concern, and I'm sure you'll hear from them tonight. And really, all we want to do is present a reasonable proposal that advances and promotes everybody's interest. We have a tremendous lot. It's 24,000 square feet, more than sufficient to build a pool, but obviously due to the strict zoning requirements and due to the corner lot and the irregular shape of our lot, we are severely impacted. And, all we want to do is use the property in a reasonable and efficient manner, particularly when our children should be spending more time outside in the sun. So that's my brief opening statement. I'm sure we'll have more time to go back and forth as needed, but I'll turn it over to Larry now. And again, all we want to do is be reasonable, be good neighbors. And that's why we're here, and happy to answer any questions. So thank you.
So with the board's permission, what I'd like to do is just review the property with you and explain what variances we are looking for and their relationship to the design that was developed. So
So let me quickly, Mr. Batinsky, you're testifying tonight as a landscape architect?
Yes.
And you're speaking to the variances?
I'm just noting what variances are being requested.
Who prepared the variances for this property?
We looked at the code, and being a pool is an accessory structure, we looked at how what we would need to accommodate, and because it's a corner lot, I can show you the zoning plan, which illustrates the setbacks and for both an accessory structure and mechanical equipment in the various yards, and that led to how we developed the location of the pool.
Okay.
Yeah. So may I bring up the plan?
Sure.
Okay. I'll just, sorry, I got to share my screen first. Can you all see that plan?
No, we cannot.
We cannot. Screen sharing. How about now?
Got it.
Okay. So let me just enlarge this a little bit. So this is our zoning permit plan, and I'm just going to enlarge the plan itself a little bit. So, and just slide over here so we can center it. So this is, as Mr. Mihalovic said, a corner lot. Dorset Lane is here, and this is Arden Place. And the variances that we are requesting are relief from this 80-foot accessory structure setback. So in this particular case, this line right here is the setback off of Arden Place, and this line right here is the setback off of Dorset. In addition, not a variance item, but a setback nevertheless, is the 36-foot mechanical use setback. So that is expressed from the rear property line here, from the Arden Place property line here, and from Dorset Lane here. So it creates this triangle. The mechanical equipment, pool equipment we are proposing is at the left rear corner of the house in this location, outside of that setback. So when we looked at the lot, we of course see the principal structure. There's a patio in the back, a walkway that goes to the driveway, which leads out to Dorset Lane, and there's a front walk. Those are the primary built features of the property as it exists. This is the proper front yard right now, which is basically open, and this is the technical front yard along Arden Place. So we knew that we did not have enough room to place a pool in this location. Obviously, the driveway is on the left side. We certainly didn't want to put it in what would be, for lack of a better term, the proper front yard. So the only place that we had left was this area here, which shows the pool in red and its associated surround. And because the lot loses grade from the back patio toward Arden Place, there is shown here a little retaining wall with steps to depress the pool as much as we could so that its impact would be minimal.
Excuse me one second. Rob, do you need this marked? Because I don't, this is not in our package.
It should be in your package.
I think
Is
it
it
is,
like
isn't
this
it?
though? It's just not colorized, right?
No, it should be.
No, I have something that resembles this that shows the different markings.
Okay, because I mean, there's like hash marks on it. That's why I was just.
I mean, look, we can
There's one
search.
with dash marks. There should be a regular size paper, and then there's 11 by, I don't even know what this is.
Yeah, hey, Craig, if you're concerned, let's mark it. Why not?
Yes, sure.
Okay, I mean, so if it's there, it's fine. I just said I'm not sure what I'm looking at different here, but that's okay. Carry on.
You know what? Let's mark it. I mean, I'm seeing kind of different versions of this that actually one of which looks just like this, but you know, certainly. So this is what hey, Craig, if you can see, this is what's in my packet.
Right, I pull up the digital prints of it, so I'm looking like on another screen here. So
I
that's
have it
why-
in my, I have it in my packet too. If that's-
Okay, that's fine, as long as it's there. I'm just looking at
Yeah.
mine might be a little bit different the way I pull it up.
If I may, Mr. Pletner, what you might be looking at is this.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. Okay.
Okay, basically, you're correct. This is basically the same plan. The crosshatch just delineated the area that we would, by code, be allowed to build a pool. So the attempt here was just to show that that crosshatch area being directly in back of the house with a patio already there, and just really given the dimensions and the shape of it, was not really conducive to placing a pool.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Sure. So I'll just go right back if that's okay. Actually, you know what I will do is, well, I'll stay on that plan real quick. So basically what we are seeking 3 variances. One is, as I mentioned, for this 80-foot setback, accessory structure setback. That's number 1. And where we are with that is instead of 80 feet off of Arden Place, we are 13 feet to the edge of the pool deck, and 18 feet to the back edge, the outside edge of the pool coping, 19 feet to water. And the other variance that we're looking for is just sort of by default, since the pool is in this location, a fence surrounding the pool is in front yard. So that's the second variance we're seeking. And then the third has to do with coverage, maximum accessory structure coverage for a corner lot. The lot currently is at 2.6%. Allowable is 7%. What we are requesting is 9.8%, or an addition of 673 square feet above what's allowed. And that's primarily taking place in the pool surround. So at this point, what I'd like to do is just go to the landscape plan, so I can just show you a little bit more about how this all lays out. So this is the existing.
And again, Mr. Patinsky, this is the plan that is in the application materials, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
So basically, you would come out of the rear of the house, down an existing set of steps onto the existing patio, and then move toward Arden Place over a series of stepping stones, and then step down 5 steps to the pool surround. Basically, what we're looking at is a finished floor elevation of 100 the rear terrace elevation of 97, and the new pool surround elevation of not only 94. The edges of the surround are 94, the pool coping is 94.15. And you will see that as you move away from the pool toward Arden Place, the grades drop. You're going from 93, 92, 91. So part of what we had done outside of landscaping within the property, there was a concern on the perimeter for providing screening, not only for the Mahalovics, but also for the neighborhood. We want to present just an evergreen, simple, clean, green hedge to the neighborhood, which would serve two functions: to provide privacy from inside, and also to diminish or minimize or pretty much eliminate over time the view into the property. So right now, there is an existing arborvitae hedge that runs along this property line. It begins here and it runs all the way and it stops here. So we are proposing to pick it up at that point and swing it along or adjacent to the property lines and bring it all the way along Arden Place to basically the front corner of the house, return it, and then allow for different planting where the gate is. So there's a double gate here in the fence and a single man gate on the opposite side that is on the walk leading to the driveway.
What are you proposing? I'm sorry. What are you proposing to plant within that evergreen hedge is extended? I don't see that depicted on your landscaping plan.
What type of plant? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, like in other words, type of evergreen.
Yes.
Size.
Right. So we're if you look here in the plant, I don't know if you can see the plant schedule. We were talking about an arborvitae, 7 to 8 feet tall, going in at 3 feet on center. And if I may show just an example, and I don't believe that this is in what was submitted, I don't think. Hold
on. So before we get to that, so your emerald green arborvitae that you have 61 of, that's what you're proposing to plant surrounding this property along where it's depicted as an evergreen hedge?
Correct.
And you're showing a new exhibit that you haven't been presented, that has not been presented to the board yet.
I believe I sent it to Eileen Davitt, but I don't know if it got onto what everybody could see.
Or why don't you present it? We can mark it.
Okay. So here we go. So it's showing some images.
Okay, hold on a second. So we're going to mark this as A1. And how many sheets is this going to be? Just one?
There are 2 sheets.
2 sheets, and you created this, sir?
Yes, sir.
And what's the date of these sheets?
Just give me 1 second. Let me just zoom in a little bit. You know, this does not have a date on it.
That's all right. Did you create this?
Yes.
And it's 2 sheets of photos and depictions?
Yes.
Okay, and you created it within the last month or so?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Basically, we heard testimony in a prior application as to what a green giant arborvitae is. That green giant arborvitae are what the existing hedge on the property is. And you can see, I think, in this in the photograph here, as was testified, that they have a fairly conical or to a degree pyramidal shape to them. So the top of this stick in the photo is 8 feet. So, we're proposing 7 to 8 feet. And we originally chose emerald green arborvitae because they, although they are narrower, they are more columnar. So they're basically fuller for to a higher extent on the plant. So you can see that in this particular photo, I hope that there's a hand here and a hand here. So you can see that if someone is standing behind this particular plant, that they're pretty much unseen. And the same thing to a degree, happens, although if you look closely, there are more gaps in the emerald green, although that will fill in over time. And basically I show these because they're just basically two options. One plant is going to grow taller over time, but initially it's going to have gaps in it, as was described before. This emerald green arborvitae is more columnar, and also in a couple of seasons, it will fill in and make a higher block sooner. So we just, we're open to either one, but this was our initial choice because of that reason. And the depiction here is, this is the existing condition looking out toward Arden Place, and I believe number 9 Arden here. And this is what we are hoping to achieve with the arborvitae hedge that goes in. So, basically we're hoping to create a green wall. And in this particular case, we're not talking about an architectural element that sits above grade. Obviously we're talking about a pool that sits flush with grade. And probably the simplest way I can describe it is if I was standing on one end of a tennis court and anyone on the board was on the other, and the net was 7 to 8 feet high, solid green, and I had a piece of plywood at my feet, unless you were 9 feet tall or 8 feet tall, you wouldn't be able to see it once this hedge fills in. So we didn't feel that overall height over time was necessarily the desired goal here. Something of a more human scale along the road would provide screening and might have a nicer feel to the neighborhood. But we are open to either one. So let's see, I will just also, so there was another board. These again are photos from outside the property.
This is still part of A1, the second sheet?
Yes, the second sheet. So let me just see if I can zoom here a little bit. So, whoops. So this is the view. This is the Mihaljevics residence. If you can see it in the back, the white structure. And this is the view down Arden Place, looking back toward the property. So you can see that there is a gap there. And then this is a depiction, whoops, of what that evergreen hedge would be doing along that property once it fills in. And over time, it would just get higher. So the other thing that I wanted to show, and I believe this was sent and that you guys can see it. This is just a plan, an aerial view of the neighborhood. And let me see if I could zoom in a little bit. This is just meant to illustrate the setbacks off of the adjacent property to the pool, the adjacent property on Dorset and the adjacent property on Arden. So we're about 50, or we are 57 feet 6 inches from the property on Arden and 27 feet 7 1/8 inch off of the property on Dorset. And it just, in context, not that they're in the front yard, but there are properties across the street that have pools. So they are in the neighborhood.
You know what, I'm sorry, I don't go back to that last one for a second? I
Sure.
don't see that the aerial in our packet. Can we just mark it as A2, please?
Absolutely.
And what's the approximate date of this aerial?
Well, there's a bunch of existing screening here. So that was there before I don't know when construction started on this adjacent home, but I think maybe, I don't know, Lear, is it 6 months ago or something that some construction started on this home?
Yeah, I don't know when you got this aerial, but yeah, certainly there's a new construction on that home. So that existing structure is no longer there. A new house is being built. But obviously my house, we moved in August 2020. So
Okay, so this is, so certainly, does this accurately depict the condition of the neighborhood as of August of 2020, to the best of your recollection?
Except for this property right here, which has a new home being built on it.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay. Let's see. I just wanted to show the board. So we talk about the equipment, the pool equipment at the side of the house, which is fine by setback, but that would be surrounded by a lattice screening, again, just to hide it. There's a condenser behind this lattice screen. So it was just meant to illustrate that, you know, if we do a lattice screening, that equipment effectively will be hidden from view.
All right, can we mark this as A3? I don't see this in the packet either.
Right.
All right, so this is a photo. Did you take the photo?
Yes.
What was the date you took the photo?
This is from a project in Summit. It's at least 10 years ago.
So this is not a depiction of the subject property?
It is not.
Okay.
I do have some photographs of the subject property just to give you an idea. There's a series of photographs in this folder. Do you want to mark this, or?
Those you've submitted. You do not need to mark them.
Okay. So this is from Arden Place, looking into the property. You can see the existing arborvitae hedge in the background there. And as we move down, this is standing with my back toward the common property line. I think of number 9, Arden, looking into the side yard. The pool is effectively, somewhere in this area. So right now it's a very open property. This is panning across the back of the house, and then again a little more of a closer shot of the existing hedge with the adjacent property on Dorset. This is the opening here towards the number 9 Arden. This is an aerial view. Whoops, sorry. I guess I can't adjust that. So effectively, this is the existing property with the driveway. So the pool, sits in this area right here. We couldn't move it any further in this direction because if you notice, there's a manhole and 2 cleanouts. So there are 3 seepage pits buried underground in this location. So we needed to stay clear of those. So the pool ended up being in this location. A similar view. I'm just giving you a flavor of, what the property is like. And the last photo, which I'll get to in a moment, is just a depiction of the type of fencing that we're proposing, black aluminum, it probably as least the type of fence that's the least conspicuous, and yet still would meet pool code. The last thing is another sheet, which I don't know if you have. And again,
Hold on, I don't think we have this.
okay.
So we have to mark it. We're gonna mark it as A4.
It's titled Precedent Sites.
And what is it intended to depict?
It's intended just to depict, and again, we don't know exactly what the conditions were for these particular properties, but it just, so we have a property that's bordered, that has many front yards.
Wait, hold on a second. Is it intended, so these are aerial photos of
Yes.
other properties with pools?
Yes.
Okay.
That are effectively corner lots to the best of our understanding.
Okay. And do you know the approximate dates of these photos?
They were recent. Well, I don't know the aerial photos, what dates they were.
They're from
no, I
Google
don't.
Maps. They're from Google
Okay,
Maps.
all right. Let's keep going. Go ahead.
Yeah, so, it's, there's just 25 Bilbarton Drive, 51 Taylor. And, these particular properties have a road on 3 sides, actually. I know it's a little bit hard to see. I could try to blow it up a little bit. But yes, this is, the Taylor Road is actually out here, and this is swale and slope and swale. Here, there's a, what seems to be a pool in a front yard here, because there's a road right there. Yeah, this other one again is a corner lot, and it also has a pool, not in the backyard. I don't know again what the setback is, but we just felt that there were some precedent for this type of thing that we just wanted to express. So, I did have one other drawing. Just this is just a section that we had done. So basically, what you see here is the rear door, the steps down to the existing patio, then a walk over to steps down to the level of the pool, and the pool surround, and then the street level at Arden Place. And basically what this was meant to depict is that this is to scale a tree of 7 to 8 feet. And both Arden Place and all the properties down Arden Place, as well as the property on Dorset, adjacent property on Dorset, are lower than 23 Dorset. So effectively, if you are certainly in a car, or if you're a person of 6 feet, and we have this evergreen hedge planted, upslope a little bit, which rises it in grade, effectively, your eye gets kicked up above, certainly, all people, but also where the pool would be. So it, in our thinking, the effect on the neighborhood is negligible. So that was just meant to depict that. And I think that's it.
Okay, could you please stop sharing your screen?
Yes.
See, Steve has his hand up, so I'll go to board members with questions. Let's go ahead.
So, Larry, I got my trusty magnifying glass here, and I could finally see that this is an R4 zone home. R4 zone is 20,000 square feet. You are 24,000 plus, so it's an oversized lot, right? So you've described what the variances are, but at least from my perspective, I haven't heard why you need these variances, right? We've gotten a lot of testimony about a lot of things, but why do these variants have to be the size that they are? Why can't patios be reduced to reduce coverage? Why can't fence lines go to the back of the house instead of the front of the house? I need some justification for these variances, not just the description of what they are.
Well, the one item that you described, I know that the Mahalovics actually did express that they were open to adjusting the fence line to the back of the house, just as an aside. But we knew that we couldn't fit a pool in back of the house. So in terms of location, we felt that there wasn't any other choice.
Okay.
In terms of size, you know, for a house of this size, the patio in the back is certainly not extravagant. The pool surround, on the other hand, you know, again, it's not extravagant, but it could be reduced. Again, the Ilir had expressed that perhaps the walkway or the edge of the pool surround along Arden Place, he would be open to removing.
Okay, so if you were to do something like that, which variances would you be reducing, or which variances would you be eliminating?
Well, we're not eliminating the 80-foot setback. We're not eliminating the fence in the front yard. We would affect the coverage. As I said, right now, the way the plan is, it's 2.8% over allowable, which equates to 673 square feet. So you would be impacting that. You would
Okay.
reduce that number.
So you would be able to eliminate that variance?
Not the entire. Well, I mean, if you took away the entire pool surround, you would be able to do that.
Well, okay. Well, how else can you address that variance? What else can you do to reduce that variance?
Well, the biggest thing, if you're asking me, can we eliminate it? Can we get below it?
No.
Okay.
Reduce it.
It would just be to, I think, nip and tuck the pool surround.
What about the existing patio?
As I said, the only thing that I can think of, and I'd have to talk to Ilir to see if we'd be open to it, is that the patio does come all the way, to the house,
right?
To the left side of the steps. I don't know how they use it. I would have to have a discussion with him to see if he uses it, if he's open to cutting a little bit of it out and making it a plant area. So perhaps that's a possibility.
Yeah, look, we're open to a reasonable suggestion. We're also open to making a pool smaller, if that helps. Like I said at the beginning of my opening statement, I just want to do what the board thinks is reasonable and also at the same time satisfy my family and the neighbors.
Let me pass it on to other members to get their thoughts.
So we're not here tonight to redo your plans. We're here to adjudicate what's in front of us. So if nipping and tucking is something you intended to do, it should have been done. So at this point, we're here to look at what was in front of us. Right. So are there any other questions from board members for either one of these individuals?
I have a question.
Sure.
Is there, pretending that nothing was here, that your existing paper terrace wasn't here, none of that stuff was here, is there any conforming location where you could put a pool of any size, a small pool, perhaps? Like anywhere on this property that's conforming?
May I share again?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you. Just see if I can do that. So I would, can you see that?
No, it's not up yet.
Oh, okay. Let me see, maybe I did something wrong. Anything now?
No, not yet.
No. Well, if you, I don't seem to be able to bring it up. I'm sorry. But if you recall, there was that cross-hatched area in back of the house that was a very irregular shape and had a lot of constrictions to it. So, you would, if there were any locations for a pool, it would literally be at the bottom of the egress from the back of the house. So I would say no, that you couldn't put a pool in back of the house and make it really, functional and usable.
Okay, any other questions from board members?
Just a quick question here for Larry. The surrounding area around the pool you mentioned that could be reduced. What is that square footage that is surrounding the pool?
I don't have the exact square footage. I don't have that number, unfortunately.
Ken, what's the proposed size of the pool?
18 by
36.
Yes, 18 by 36.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else, John Drew?
No, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from board members? If that's the case, I will open up to questions from the audience. These are questions only of either Mr. Patinsky or Mr. Mueller. Anyone have any questions in the audience? Mondshine, I see has a hand up. Mr. Zhu, we'll get to you next. If you could please turn on your, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Question.
Yes, I'm Ross Munch. I'm the adjacent neighbor at 9 Arden Place. I told O'Leary I'd be speaking on tonight in opposition to this. My question is this, is that you mentioned that the emerald green arborvitae were the arborvitae that you were going to select because they weren't pear-shaped. They were sort of more conical. The emerald green arborvitae, though, are not deer-resistant arborvitae. Are you aware about that?
Yeah, I am. I was judging by the existing green giants that are in, which will, in my experience, if the deer pressure is heavy enough, they will be eaten. You could say I've seen them. So I was judging by that. That the other ones would be okay in this location. I didn't see a lot of evidence of deer myself.
Mr. Chairman, can I make comments now too, or is that?
No, we're going to come back to that. I have a question yet, and I'll bring you back for comments if you would like. Okay, we're going to put you back in the audience, and we're going to bring over Eugene Zhu. Mr. Zhu, if you'd be so kind as to turn on your camera, thank you so much. And your question for the applicants.
Yes, hi. I have a question for Larry. The arborvitaes that you're talking about to plant, are they going to plant inside the fence or outside the fence?
Well, the fence has to be the barrier, so they would be inside the fence.
They'll be inside the fence. Okay.
Anything else?
No, that's it for now.
Okay. Mr. Robert Exelbert has a question next. Mr. Exelbert, if you could turn on your camera and unmute yourself, please.
Okay.
And we can't see you, sir.
Oh.
Could you just angle that so we could actually see you?
Okay.
There you go. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So in terms of sound and light, right? Because the pool is going to be used at various times of the day. There'll be people in the pool, and the pool is rather close to the street. How does anything that is proposed cancel out or conceal sound and lights? How is that being addressed?
From a landscape standpoint, whether my experience has been, whether I'm in back of the house or where this pool is located, depending on where you are, of course, the sound landscape is not really a sound deterrent. Maybe a berm is a sound deterrent, or a fence, a solid fence, but planting does not really mitigate sound. In terms of light, again, I go just back to the pool itself. Is the lights are of course underwater, and I think from a person standpoint, whether you're driving by or walking by, once the hedge fills in, that light will not be a strong element in the neighborhood.
Okay. All right. I mean, again, my concern about the sound is the fact that, you know, the pool is that close to the street. I don't have any further questions, but would like to make comments once we get to that part.
Very well, we'll bring you back to that. Okay, we still have one more question here, and then we'll bring you back, Mr. Exelbert. The next question is to resident owner. We will need your name when you come over. If you could turn on your camera also, please. And unmute yourself. Are you there?
Hello.
Hi, could you turn on your camera, please?
Yes, I don't have a camera, but let me just hang up the phone. I apologize. You don't have a face-to-face meeting, but let me tell you who I am. I am a neighbor. My name is Linda Lindsley, and I thank you for having this. I'm across the street. So I do have a question, and I've been in the neighborhood a long time. So I've seen that house go up a few years ago, and you know it switched angles and all. So it's a lot of changes. But my question is drainage. I don't think it would affect me personally, that aspect of it, but the fact that I haven't seen a pit put in this drain, and I just know from other development, water has been an issue. So I just say for the neighborhood, or as this develops, I'd wonder if drainage and grading has carefully been looked at, and if there'll be a well put in. I think there's a lot of other large issues too, but that's my question for the neighbors close by.
So I'll take care of that real quick. All of these applications must go through our engineering department in town. So if this application is approved, it will be looked at by our engineering department as to necessary drainage, grading, and if grading permits need to be issued, that will have to be to the satisfaction of the township.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Am I allowed to ask another question or no?
Absolutely. Feel free.
Okay. And I just have since I can't comment, I just have a question on safety of kind of closing in a lot like that. I mean, I don't think the board wants to hear about the fact that you're blocking a lot of houses and the view, which, you know, may not be what I think is ideal for market, but I just wondered the safety of that kind of barrier on a block lot. We have seniors that walk often. I know there's someone who has an auditory disability in the area long-term. And I just wondered if between the noise and that, if that's just something we could all consider as we move toward a compromise, or the board considers the safety of this application. And thank you.
Sure. Mr. Batinsky, do you care to bite off on that one, or is it outside your wheelhouse?
I think, yeah, it's kind of outside my wheelhouse.
Okay.
Okay. Are there any other questions from members of the audience? I do not see any. So now we're going to go to comments from the audience. So I know Mr. Monshine had one, so we'll bring him back, and then Mr. Exelbert, I believe, also. So we'll bring him back, and Mr. Zeus, so he'll go next. Okay.
Okay, Mr. Monshine, if you just raise your right hand, please. Do you swear affirm testimony you're about to give in tonight's hearing be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Ross Monshine. My address is 9 Arden Place, the adjacent neighbor, Short Hills, New Jersey 07078.
Just spell your first name.
ROSS.
Go ahead, Mr. Monshine.
No, I appreciate that. You know, I spoke to Alir 2 weeks ago just to let him know that I'd be voicing my opposition to his plan. I'm really glad actually that he moved into the neighborhood. I think he's a really nice neighbor. Him and his wife Julie had me over to his house. Beyond the technical aspects of this, Unfortunately, he has a very large property, but he has 2 front yards. He doesn't really have a proper backyard. I think putting in a pool, I'm totally on board with his plans to put in arborvitaes and to sort of give his back, what he considers a backyard, but really a front yard, some more privacy. There's a lot of exposure there. But putting in a pool into this area that's going to be essentially 13 to 15 feet from the street is not appropriate, in my opinion. I think it ruins the streetscape. And I also feel as well that, when I have a front yard and I'm going to be staring at my front yard right onto his pool, I know that Larry sort of testified to the growth of these arborvitaes. I put in 50 arborvitaes myself, and I know if there's any shade, they grow in a lot slower than we think, and they don't really create a perfect screen. So, in my opinion, I want his children to have a pool. There is a pool across the street. There's a municipal pool that I go to and I take my kids to. It's a very, very nice pool. That's a good option. But because of the orientation a lot, the proximity to the street, I believe it's going to ruin the streetscape, as well as his yard bordering my front yard. No one wants to look on their front yard and turn to the right and look at a pool. It's not appropriate. Pools belong in a proper backyard where it is blocked by a physical plant, a physical house. Unfortunately, that is not his lot. That's just the orientation of what it is, and I don't think there's any way kind of around it. So I like the Lear very much. I hope that we can. I hope he doesn't take this personally, but I'm in opposition to his plan for the pool. I totally support his arborvitaes, though. I think that'll be a great idea.
Great, thank you very much for your thoughts. Next up, we're going to Eugene Zhu.
Just raise your right hand. Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear affirm testimony about to give tonight's hearing be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Eugene Su. Last name spells XU. The first name is Eugene. And my address is 15 Arden Place. That's next to Ross Monshine's lot. I think, having a very conflicted mind today to appear here. On the one hand, I really want to welcome Ilir and his family to the neighborhood, and I do believe they are very good neighbors, and I do think that they have very good reason to want to have a pool, in their property. But on the other hand, I'm really conflicted because I try to put up a picture in my mind, trying to picturing something that, like with a fence like that close to the street. And keep in mind that Arden Place is really a very quiet street, and which only have like a handful of houses on each side. And every houses of those are having, like a quite decent setback. And I think to suddenly have a fence that close to the street is really cause a safety hazard. And I think also not to mention that it will completely change the look of the street. And it will, into that, I second what Ross just said. I'm in opposition to this plan.
Thank you, Mr. Zhu.
Yeah.
Next, we'll be going to Robert Exelbert.
If you would just raise your right hand, please. Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give tonight to be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Your name and address for the record.
Robert Exelbert, 29 Dorset Lane, Short Hills, New Jersey, 07078.
Please proceed.
Okay, I just want to say that I truly regret, getting on this call to oppose Lear's application. while we haven't yet really gotten to know each other very well, I am happy he and his family are in the neighborhood, and look forward to getting to know him better. But what is being proposed here with respect to the pool, putting pool equipment, et cetera, where the pool is going to go is plainly wrong, and I have to object. The pool seems really close to the street, to Arden. The way that the house is situated and built, it is in a front yard, so to speak. It's just not appropriate for the area. The pool is not going into a rear yard, and that is a problem. We heard on this call that the pool is going to be 13 feet from the street, 13 feet from street to the edge of the pool deck, 18 feet from the street to coping, and 19 feet from street to the water. That's hardly a distance. And I just want to address in terms of the precedent, I don't know, they all look a lot better recessed to me, and I'm not really sure that there's really very much in terms of precedential value in that. The 7 foot to 8 foot emerald green trees, again, they do look porous to me, and will take a couple of seasons to grow. So I don't think that's the answer either. Look, pools belong in backyards, not side yards, and not in front yards. And, from my house, I'm going to be staring at his pool. The area where the pool will be built does not have the look and feel of a backyard, and landscaping will not serve as a privacy buffer that conceals the pool. And I wish to point out that the area where the pool is going on is elevated ground. So that also becomes an even greater issue here. The point of a pool in a rear yard is to conceal or muffle sounds emanating from people in and around the pool. And I have no issues with people gathering in backyards to get together with others around the pool. But where this pool is will end up being a nuisance for the community, for those on the street, without a house between the pool and the street, which you're not going to have here, because that's the only thing that provides any real blockage. Sounds will not be blocked. And, I really wasn't referring to the lights in the pool, but there are going to be other lights that may be on, later in the day as you get to dusk that, certainly, could shine out and over the trees, and that cannot be corrected or concealed. The area itself becomes visually undesirable. And I really believe that where this pool would be, whether you want to call it a side yard or a front yard, will cheapen the neighborhood and spoil what we have in our neighborhood. I think the detriments clearly outweigh the benefits, and I don't really think there's any community benefit at all. And the negative impact on us neighbors is too great, including safety, as has been mentioned before. Just want to say that I think that, we should try to just maintain the standards that we've maintained in Millburn Short Hills, and that the building of this pool is just not appropriate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Exelbert. Any other comments from audience at this time? I do not see any. So in that case, I will close the public portion of this meeting. Board members, what comments do you have?
I'll start off. I am not in favor of this application. I think, first of all, we all know, historically, the purpose of the ordinance to not have fences in the front yard is to keep open views and sweeping views. And, this property is really a very good example of that. Putting a fence in the front yard is going to completely change the streetscape. I think that it's unfortunate, but in this circumstance, there are just some properties that they just, it doesn't work to have a pool. And, this very well may be one of them, in my opinion. I think that it would really be a detriment to the neighborhood. And, besides choosing to buy a house on a corner lot where you have more than one, front yard and no official backyard, I don't really see what the hardship is here. So I'm not in favor of the application.
Thank you, Jessica. Any other comments from board members? Wolfgang?
Yeah, this reminds me of, I think we saw an application not dissimilar to this a few months ago.
Oxford and Slope, yeah.
Yeah, and it's, again, it was so, it's just something that just sticks out. It would stick out so much in the neighborhood, so unlike anything else there. It would be, as many of the neighbors have already opined, it would just be really an eyesore, very out of character. And I wouldn't approve this application.
Joe, I believe you had your hand up next. You're muted.
I will associate myself with the comments that have been made already.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments? I'll go. I truly believe that this whole design is a detriment to the streetscape around that neighborhood. Stuart Hartshorn's original vision of lawns flowing into lawns would be completely interrupted by having a big black fence around an entire corner property with a pool on the other side of it, only 13 feet away. I too, just like Steve Toger mentioned, Wolfgang, Jessica, that I find it very hard to find any type of hardship here other than it being a corner lot. And even under C2 criteria, I think fencing an entire corner lot to accommodate this pool would absolutely be detrimental to the zoning plan and the master plan. So I think it's a prominent piece of property. It's a pretty piece of property, and it should be maintained as such without being fenced in with a pool put in the front yard. So I too would not support this application. So unless there's a motion to approve, is there a motion to deny?
I move denial of this application.
Sorry, I didn't realize I was muted. Second.
Oh.
Jody Sharma,
Yes.
Joseph Steinberg,
You muted. There you go.
Yes.
Steve Toger,
Yes.
Wolfgang Tuturis,
Yes.
Chandru Harjani,
Yes.
Jessica Glatt,
Yes.
Craig Pleitner.
Yes. Thank you for coming in front of us this evening.
Thank you.
Rob, quick thing. So obviously we go back to this case, we're nearing in almost like, 11 o'clock essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, T-Mobile, clearly we're not going to get to that. So I just want to see what your thoughts are and how we handle this. Even this case may be tough to get done in a short period of time.
Well, I mean, it's almost 11 o'clock. So.
Right. So Eileen, what are your thoughts?
You don't want to know.
I know.
Well, I mean, what time? It's 11. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you want to try and finish off Stuart. I don't know how, if they were not really prepared at the beginning, so I don't know how much they've gotten.
Yeah. So, Miss Alfonso, I'll go to you real quick. Do you guys have your stuff together? Because I'll be honest with you, so far it's been less than excellent. So, where are you with having your, people
I understand.
all lines?
I think we do have the numbers now. We're okay if you would rather us wait, but I think that we could provide you those numbers and then see if Ms. Davitt agrees with that number first.
At this point, I would like then you to submit those to Ms. Davitt, and we'll take a look before we proceed with this case, being that's 11 o'clock, and I don't want to get into a negotiation situation. So
Understood.
I would like you to submit those for review by the board and Ms. Davitt, and then we will proceed at another time, which I know Eileen's not thrilled about. Sure. And
I appreciate the opportunity.
Sure. When can this case be looked at again?
How long do you anticipate it would take? Because This is the problem that, because sign was not supposed to take this long and it consumed an hour and a half of the meeting. So, I mean, April 18th, we're doing the Kai Center.
So that's
And
out.
I put Prashker on there, which was carried over from March 21st. May 2nd, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 applications.
I can't imagine, this is Samantha, I can't imagine we would take more than a half hour as long as, right, we would have it submitted, our calculations and approved by Ms. Davitt before the next hearing. If that's helpful for
I think
scheduling.
you could do it in a half an hour also.
Thank you.
Right. Well, we could squeeze them on May 2nd. I mean, I don't know that you want to put them on the same night as Kai Center. I think we're trying
Absolutely
to,
not. I want to try to get that thing either, to some point.
Then let's shoot for May 2nd.
Okay. Does
May
that
2nd,
work
May
for
16th.
Does that work for you, Ms. Alfonso?
Yes, Rich, Nasser, I know that we're gonna need you, Mr. Nasser. Will you be available on May 2nd? You can nod if that works.
Yeah, I
Okay.
can.
Thank
good.
you.
And I will get in touch with Ms. Davitt and discuss the numbers.
Thank
Excellent.
you.
Okay, then we will, no further notice will be given on that case for anyone that's in the audience regarding that. And we will see you on May 2nd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Have a good evening. Let's bring over then,
Need to
I
bring
don't
over
know,
Mr.
who's the
Mr.
attorney?
Frank
Yeah,
Ferraro is the-
bring Frank Ferraro over.
Okay,
They filed an appeal as well as.
Right.
I saw that, yeah.
So I think I'm going to drop off. So I'm going to
Okay.
recuse.
Yeah, sure, sorry. I'm sorry. I knew you were, sorry.
Well, we may not even,
We're not,
started,
Right.
so I don't know if.
Mr. Ferraro, how are you this evening?
Very well. How are you doing, Mr. Chairman?
Good. I apologize for our late meeting, but it looks
Perfectly
like
fine.
we're gonna have to carry your case. So you just wanted to bring in front of us to see what's a convenient date for you.
As early as you can hear us, Mr. Chairman. I'm not sure what your availability is as far as agendas.
It's this year.
So afraid you might say that.
Okay. Let's see what
is there
Eileen has.
Well, considering I just gave May 2nd, which puts us at 6. May 16th, I have 4 applications. Believe it or not, 2 of them are pools, I think, but
Is there any room on April 18th just to hear the appeal part of the application? Because I don't suspect that the appeal part would take that long. I'm only going to have my engineer to review the plan.
Mr. Chairman, I think that that's an appropriate request under the
I agree.
circumstances. Mr. Ferraro, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I might have missed it. Have you supplied the original resolution or any subsequent resolution for approval of this installation?
Yeah, we've been searching for the resolution. We filed an Oprah, but we didn't get the resolution back. I have prior permits that have been issued to the applicant.
Frank,
for
I think
upgrade.
you know what I'm looking for.
I know.
mean, have you talked to the landlord or landlord rep or some prior owner who may have transferred those documents over on a change of title or otherwise?
Yeah, Matt Calley did not. Well, they did not respond to that request. We'd be willing to look for it if we can come down there. I'm not sure how they are filed, by the township, but I too want to get my hands on that. And it was my intention to provide that to the board, but I have not been able to locate it yet through the Oprah process, because we had this issue about 2 years ago. Same thing on this same exact property. So I don't know if the township has the prior resolutions on file for this property or not, but I do not have it in my possession.
the Oprah request has actually trickled down to me because I looked at it when you first filed the application. And I mean, anything prior to when I started, I mean, I started keeping them on the computer. Well, our applications are kept at file bank and there's no record of anything for this property that I've been able to locate.
So no record. So yeah, all we have is upgrade of permits that have been approved starting in 2012. We have, and then another one in 2016. You know, ironically, we ran into the same issue. I don't want to get off, it's late, but we ran into the same issue with another appeal application. We had a 41 JF Kennedy Parkway, same type of installation. I don't know how these were approved at that time, but I have not been able to locate the approval resolutions through the town's records or my client's records. At this point, all I have is, you know, they've gone in for upgrades to the facilities over the years. I have approved construction permits. That's it.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, you know, I guess other than, you know, doing your best with an Oprah and reaching out to Matt Calley and your own client in terms of what you can find, you know, I guess we can just, you know, deal on a, I guess, a semi-bifurcated basis and just deal with the appeal first.
Okay. All right. I'll see what I can find.
Yeah.
So the date for that will be what, Eileen? The
April 18th, right?
April 18th. Okay. You're good with that. So if anyone is in the audience that's here for the T-Mobile application, we'll be hearing the appeal on April 18th with no further notice.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Otherwise, is there anything else anyone in the audience would like to discuss that was not on the agenda tonight? I do not see any hands raised. So I appreciate everyone's attendance. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I move adjournment.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Have a great evening, guys.
Good night.
Thanks, everybody. Night.